Chapter 39-27. Actually, Ling Huashua, Ling Huafeng, and Ling Piao had been paying attention to Lu Ming. When they saw that Lu Ming had not come out to count, they thought that Lu Ming was too embarrassed to take it out because his harvest was too little. Especially Ling Piao, she thought that she would definitely be able to chase Lu Ming away this time. She didn't expect that at the last moment, Lu Ming would walk out. Mu Yun, if your harvest is not enough, then don't take it out. I can make the decision to give you 1,000 elven wood cores. Take those elven wood cores and leave the elven race. Ling Piao continued. It was as if he was sending away a beggar, wanting to send Lu Ming away. Many elves revealed expressions of envy and jealousy towards Lu Ming. Just because they had hooked up with Ling Yue, they were able to obtain 1,000 elven wood cores without any harvest, causing them to be extremely jealous. Mu Yun hasn't counted yet, what are you in such a hurry for? Ling Yue looked at Ling Piao indifferently and said. You still want to count? Yue, I'm doing this for his own good, so that he won't lose face in front of everyone, but you don't know how to appreciate my kindness, sigh. Ling Piao deliberately sighed. How do you know that he will lose face? Maybe Mu Yun has already obtained 12 high-level elven tree seeds. Ling Yue said. Puchi. At the scene, someone couldn't help but laugh out loud. However, as soon as he laughed out loud, he held it back and his face flushed red. Ling Yue was the elven princess. The elven emperor was also present at the scene. Even if Ling Yue said something unreliable, they couldn't laugh at Ling Yue. Otherwise, the elven emperor would lose face. However, Ling Piao was still a member of the royal family, and there were very few people in the royal family. Therefore, Ling Piao's status in the elven race was also very high, equivalent to a princess. She wasn't afraid. She laughed out loud and said, Yue, if you want to protect him, you have to be rational. Fortunately, everyone here is on our side. Otherwise, we would have attracted a joke. Alright, I think Piao's suggestion is not bad. Big brother, I also propose to give Mu Yun 1,000 elven wood cores and let him leave the elven race. As for the elven tree seeds that he obtained, let him take them away. There's no need to count them. What do you think? Huafeng spoke and looked at Ling Huashua. Ling Huashua hesitated for a moment. Are you sure you can let me take away the elven seed? Don't regret it. Lu Ming looked at Ling Huafeng with a faint smile. I never regret my words. Ling Huafeng said. No, I must count them. This time, it was Ling Yue's turn to be uneasy. She knew that not only did Lu Ming have a large number of advanced elven tree seeds, but he also had holy tree seeds. This was too important to the elven race, as it would affect their future. If Lu Ming really took away such a treasure, it wouldn't be good for Lu Ming either. This was because the elves would definitely do anything to take it from Lu Ming. At that time, it would be even more dangerous for Lu Ming. Therefore, whether it was for Lu Ming or for the elves, Ling Yue had to stop him. Father, you must count them. Believe me, I won't let you down. Ling Yue eagerly looked at Ling Huashua with a pleading expression. Alright, let's count them. In the end, Ling Huashua nodded. Humph, you're really asking for humiliation. Ling Piao snorted coldly. Of course, she only snorted coldly in her heart. Since Ling Huashua had already spoken, she naturally didn't dare to say it in public. Mu Yun, let's count them. Ling Yue looked at Lu Ming again with an eager expression. Lu Ming nodded. Actually, he didn't really have the intention to take away the elven tree seed. Even if he took it away, it wouldn't be of much use. He didn't know the method to cultivate the elven tree. Moreover, he already had a holy tree seed, which was enough for him to use in the future. Even if he brought ordinary elven tree seeds with him, it would be useless. Of course, exchanging for the elven wood heart would be more useful to him. Lu Ming stepped out and arrived in front of the elder of the treasure trove hall. In the hall, many of the elven geniuses looked at Lu Ming with schadenfreude, wanting to see Lu Ming make a fool of himself. Lu Ming was expressionless as he calmly took out a storage ring. Then, the storage ring lit up and a large pile of jade boxes flew out. There were about 200 of them. 200 jade boxes floated in the air. It was simply dazzling. Everyone was stunned. So many jade boxes, could it be that each jade box contains a elven tree seed? Impossible, absolutely impossible. This Mu Yun isn't even a divine emperor, how could he obtain so many elven tree seeds? He probably took them randomly. I bet that most of his jade boxes are empty. Sensationalism, what a joke. In the hall, waves of discussion sounded out. Ling Huafeng, Ling Piao, and the others sneered. Did he think that taking out a large pile of jade boxes would be useful to scare them? Did he think that they were scared? Ridiculous. Elder, let's begin. Lu Ming's expression remained calm as he said to the elder of the treasure trove hall. The elder of the treasure trove hall was also somewhat confused. More than 200 jade boxes really contained elven tree seeds. To be honest, he didn't believe it at all. Previously, even the most powerful prodigy of the elf tribe didn't obtain so many elven tree seeds. Lu Ming was just a quasi-emperor, how could he obtain so many? However, he still had to do his job well. Immediately, he grabbed a jade box and began to count. He opened the lid of the jade box, and suddenly, a rich life essence filled the air. There really is one. It's a low-level elven tree seed. Many people's eyes flickered, and they were a little surprised. There really is one. The elder of the treasure trove hall was also slightly stunned. He didn't expect that out of more than 200 jade boxes, one of them would really contain a elven tree seed. At this point, he still didn't believe that more than 200 jade boxes contained elven tree seeds. He just happened to be lucky and caught one. In fact, many people thought so, including Ling Piao and the others. Humph, you're just lucky. Sensationalism, you'll be exposed sooner or later. Let's see how you deal with this later. Ling Piao sneered in her heart, waiting to see Lu Ming make a fool of himself. At this moment, the elder of the treasure trove hall grabbed the second jade box and opened it. Immediately, another rich life essence filled the air. Another low-level elven tree seed. Many people were stunned. Luck, it must be luck. Many people told themselves. My luck is not bad. The elder of the treasure trove hall nodded in his heart. Then, he grabbed the third jade box and opened it. It was another low-level elven tree seed. The third one. This time, many people were dumbfounded and didn't dare to judge. It's impossible, it must be luck. Ling Piao roared in her heart. Her expression slowly changed from one of schadenfreude to one of watching a good show to one of gloom. Chapter 39-28. The counting continued. The treasure vault elder picked up the fourth jade box. After opening it, it was still a low-level elven tree seed. Then, it was the fifth, the sixth, every jade box was not empty. They all contained a low-level elven tree seed. Gradually, the hall became completely silent. The expressions of Ling Piao and her sister became more and more gloomy and ugly. One or two could be said to be luck, but 5, 6, 7, there were even more. If every one of them contained a elven tree seed, then it was not luck. Moreover, looking at Lu Ming's calm expression, could it be that every jade box contained a elven tree seed? More than 200 elven tree seeds? How was this possible? However, whether it was possible or not, they would know as they continued watching. 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 150, soon, a total of 208 jade boxes were all accounted for. Each jade box contained a low-level sprite seed, and none of them were empty. Ling Piao's face was incomparably gloomy and ugly. This was a blatant slap to her face. With 208 low-level elven tree seeds, just the reward alone would be 2080 elven wood cores. And just now, she actually said that she would use 1000 elven wood cores to send Lu Ming away. Wasn't that ridiculous? Not bad, not bad. The elders of the treasure vault nodded repeatedly. They were in charge of managing the treasure vault, so they naturally hoped that there would be more treasures in the treasure vault. The more there were, the happier they would be. Although they were all low-level elven tree seeds, it was still very good to have an increase of 208 elven tree seeds. These 2080 elven wood cores are for you. The female elven elder from the treasure vault took out 2080 elven wood cores and handed them to Lu Ming. Lu Ming put them away happily. The other elven prodigies were extremely envious. There were not many who could obtain more than 2000 elven wood cores at the scene. Little guy, you can't have all low-level elven tree seeds, right? There should be some mid-level elven tree seeds, right? The elder of the treasure palace, who was in charge of checking, smiled at Lu Ming. The gazes of the others also converged on Lu Ming, revealing all kinds of complicated expressions. Yes, to be able to obtain 208 low-level elven tree seeds, how could there not be any mid-level elven tree seeds? At the very least, he would be able to obtain some intermediate sprite tree species. Of course. Lu Ming smiled. Then, with a thought, a large pile of jade boxes flew out from his storage ring. This time, the number of jade boxes was much less. There were only 66 of them. So many? 66. Could they all be mid-level sprite tree species? How is this possible? 66 intermediate elven tree seeds? Do you think intermediate elven tree seeds are cabbages? 66. I reckon that most of them are low-level elven tree species. He didn't take all of them just now. That's right, that's right. If there really are so many intermediate sprite tree seeds, I'll eat dirt in front of everyone. In fact, none of the elven lords present, including Ling Huashua, Ling Huafeng, and the other elders believed it. 66 mid-grade sprite tree seeds? How was that possible? Previously, everyone's mid-level sprite tree seeds added together were not much more than this. Ling Piao and her sister stared fixedly at these jade boxes, praying in their hearts that there were not mid-level sprite tree seeds inside. Elder, let's begin. Lu Ming said to the elder. The elder's eyes couldn't help but reveal a look of anticipation. Although he didn't believe that there would be so many mid-level sprite tree seeds, he was still looking forward to it in his heart. His anticipation was real. He picked up a jade box and opened the lid. Immediately, an even richer life essence spread out. Mid-level sprite tree seed. Without needing to look, everyone knew that this was a mid-level sprite tree seed. It was really a mid-level sprite tree seed. Was it a coincidence, or? These 66 jade boxes were all mid-level sprite tree seeds. Many people couldn't help but stretch their necks and stare fixedly. In the main hall, there was no sound at all as they waited for the treasure vault elder to count. The treasure vault elder picked up the second jade box and opened it. It was still a mid-level sprite tree seed. Many people's breathing became heavy. Could it be that all 66 jade boxes contained mid-level sprite tree seeds? It couldn't be, right? The treasure vault elder continued to count, and his speed became faster and faster. 3, 4, 8, 10, after each jade box was opened, there were no exceptions. They were all mid-level sprite tree seeds. In the end, most people were flabbergasted and dumbfounded. As for Ling Piao and Ling Huafeng, their expressions were incomparably ugly. Only Ling Yue's expression remained calm. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that there were raging flames burning in the depths of Ling Yue's eyes. It was a look of anticipation. This is only the beginning. Just you wait and see. The shock is yet to come. Ling Piao, second uncle, royal father, Ling Yue roared in her heart. When she thought of the scene where Lu Ming took out the holy seed, she was so excited that her entire body trembled slightly. 66. All of them are mid-level sprite tree seeds. In the end, the treasure vault elder announced and let out a heavy breath. Heavens, they're really all mid-level sprite tree seeds. How did he do it? He's only at the quasi-emperor stage, but he actually obtained so many mid-level sprite tree seeds. How is this possible? How is this possible? The scene was in an uproar. They couldn't understand how Lu Ming did it. Especially the young man who said that the 66 jade boxes were all mid-level sprite tree seeds. At this moment, he didn't dare to speak. His body slowly shrank back, as if he was afraid of being discovered. Could it be that the sprite tree seeds also have a nest? Like some mushrooms, they would be born in a certain place in large quantities and then coincidentally be encountered by Mu Yun? Someone came up with a novel idea. Mushrooms were like this. They would grow in large quantities in one place, forming a nest. Could it be that the sprite tree seeds were the same? But he had never heard of it before. The others also looked at each other in dismay. Damn it, how is this possible? The ones who were the most unhappy were Ling Huafeng and his father, especially Ling Piao. Her face was as gloomy as ice. Good, good, good. The few elders of the treasure palace praised him. That's right. This time, Ling Huashua also nodded and revealed a smile on his face. His impression of Lu Ming had also changed. After all, the mid-level sprite tree seeds were already very useful to the sprite race. They could affect the overall strength of the sprite race. He was naturally happy. Mu Yun, this is your reward. Because there are too many of them, it's not easy to take them out. You can count them yourself. The female elf elder from the treasure vault took out a storage ring and handed it to Lu Ming. The eyes of the others immediately lit up. Chapter 39-29. Most of the elven prodigy's eyes were burning with passion. 66 mid-level elven tree species, and the reward was 6,600 elven wood hearts. This was a terrifying amount of wealth. The elven prodigies were burning with passion. As for Ling Piao and the others, they were even more envious and jealous. They were the ones who recommended Lu Ming to participate in the Holy Seed assessment. Without their recommendation, Lu Ming, an outsider, would not have had the chance to participate in the Holy Seed assessment. They had originally recommended Lu Ming to participate in the Holy Seed assessment with the intention of getting rid of Lu Ming in the ancestral land. However, they never expected that Lu Ming would have such a huge harvest. Now, even if Lu Ming did not complete their mission and left the elven tribe, his harvest was still astonishing. He had obtained a total of more than 8,000 elven wood hearts. Even they were jealous because they could not take out so many elven wood hearts. And these were all given to Lu Ming by them. Indirectly, it was equivalent to giving them to Lu Ming. They were feeling extremely displeased and uncomfortable. Lu Ming took the storage ring and scanned it with his spiritual consciousness. There were indeed 6,600 elven wood hearts inside. Lu Ming happily put it away. Mu Yun, although your harvest is not small, your mission is to obtain 12 high-level elven tree species. If you do not complete the mission, please leave the elven tribe and have nothing to do with Yue in the future. At this moment, Ling Piao spoke. 12 high-level elven tree species? How can this be completed? It was the first time that many of the young elven prodigies knew about Lu Ming's mission, and they immediately discussed it. It was simply impossible to obtain 12 high-level elven tree species. One had to know that this time, all the elven prodigies added up only obtained 4. It was impossible for Lu Ming to obtain 12 elven tree species. It was absolutely impossible for high-level elven tree species to form a nest because every high-level elven tree species needed to absorb a huge amount of life essence. It was almost impossible for several high-level elven tree species to appear in the same place. Even if Lu Ming really found the nests of low-level and mid-level elven tree species, it was impossible for him to obtain high-level elven tree species. It was impossible for him to obtain 12 high-level elven tree species. Lu Ming looked at Ling Piao, the corners of his lips curling into a cold smile. Seeing Lu Ming's sneer, for some reason, Ling Piao had a bad premonition in her heart. Could it be? No, impossible. Ling Piao shook her head. It was absolutely impossible to obtain 12 high-grade elven tree seeds. She absolutely did not believe it. Her heart slowly calmed down as she stared coldly at Lu Ming, waiting for the moment when Lu Ming would be chased out of the elf tribe. Little guy, do you have any more elven tree seeds? For example, high elf tree species. The elder in charge of the treasury hall looked at Lu Ming expectantly. Yes. Lu Ming nodded with a calm expression. There really is. The eyes of the elders of the treasure vault, Ling Huashua, and the other high-ranking elves lit up. High-grade elven tree species were the foundation of the elven race. It was very useful. Even if there was only one, it would be a great harvest. Previously, the other elves had only obtained 4 in total. Therefore, even if Lu Ming only had 1, it was already very good. There's really one? Ling Huafeng, Ling Piao, and the others narrowed their eyes. His mission is 12. Even if he can get 1 or 2, it's useless. At most, it'll give him a little more reward. Ling Piao and the others comforted themselves like this. Under everyone's attention and anticipation, Lu Ming took out a jade box. Moreover, there were 49 jade boxes. Looking at the 49 jade boxes floating in the air, everyone was stunned. What did this mean? When they asked him if he had any high-grade elven tree species, Lu Ming took out 49 jade boxes. Could it be that these 49 jade boxes were all high-grade elven tree species? Impossible, 1,000 and 10,000 impossible. At the scene, other than Ling Yue, no one believed it. This, little guy, are these all high-grade elven tree species in your jade boxes? The elder from the treasure repository palace asked in a probing manner. Yes. Lu Ming nodded. What? Everyone was dumbfounded, including Ling Huashua, the overlord of the universe. Inside the jade boxes were all high-grade elven tree species. There were 49 of them. They felt that their minds were completely muddled, and their thoughts were in a mess. Mu Yun, how dare you? You're courting death. At this moment, an angry shout was heard. It was Ling Piao. Ling Piao glared at Lu Ming, killing intent constantly appearing in her eyes, flickering with a sinister light. Lu Ming calmly waited for Ling Piao's next words. He knew that Ling Piao definitely had something to say. Sure enough, Ling Piao shouted again, our clan's elven emperor is here, and there are all the elders. But you, Mu Yun, are spouting nonsense and deceiving our clan's elven emperor. This is a capital crime. How did I deceive? Lu Ming said. You said that these 49 jade boxes of yours are all high-grade elven tree species, right? Ling Piao said. Yes. Lu Ming nodded. That's cheating, because it's impossible for you to have 49 high-grade elven tree species. This is completely impossible. You're playing with our clan's elven emperor. Ling Piao shouted coldly. She didn't believe that Lu Ming could get 49 high-grade elven tree species. The people of the elven race all knew how rare high-grade elven tree species were. The elven race didn't get many over the years. This time, the entire elven race only got 4 of them. But Lu Ming got 49. How was that possible? After hearing Ling Piao's words, many people also thought that Lu Ming was really deceiving them and was playing with them. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. He didn't want to slap others in the face, but they kept sending their faces to him. Take Ling Piao for example. Originally, even if Lu Ming wanted to slap her face, it wouldn't be too loud. However, Ling Piao's words just now were sending her face to Lu Ming. In this way, it would be loud when he slapped her face later. Lu Ming naturally had to fulfill Ling Piao's wish. In that case, there's no need to count them one by one. Open your eyes and watch. As soon as his voice fell, Lu Ming waved his hand, and the 49 jade boxes suspended in the air vibrated at the same time. Then, all 49 box lids flew up. Boom boom boom, as soon as the 49 lids were opened, the life essence in the jade boxes rushed out like a volcanic eruption. In the blink of an eye, the hall was filled with extremely rich life essence. The rich life essence gathered together as if it had turned into a substance, making everyone feel as if they were bathed in water. At this moment, the hall fell into a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and their eyes were full of disbelief. There was no ordinary person at the scene. With a slight sweep of their spiritual consciousness, they knew what level of elven tree species were in the 49 jade boxes. High-grade elven tree species, all of them were high-grade elven tree species. Chapter 39:30. All of them were high-grade elf tree species. There was no doubt about it. 49 high-grade elf tree species were real. Ling Huashua, Ling Huafeng, and the higher-ups of the elf tribe, who had been sitting calmly in their seats, suddenly stood up from their seats. A powerful aura was emitted from their bodies. Their eyes were wide open as they stared at the 49 jade boxes in the air. Even with their temperament, it was difficult for them to suppress the excitement in their hearts. No, this is impossible. Ling Piao stared at the jade boxes. Her body was trembling non-stop, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Shock, disbelief, these emotions filled everyone's heart. Elder, Lu Ming called out a few times in a row. Only then did the elders of the Treasure Repository Palace come to their senses. Elder, help me check if there's any problem. Lu Ming said. Okay, the elder of the Treasure Repository Palace, who was in charge of checking, nodded repeatedly. Then, he looked at them one by one. The more he looked, the more excited he became. In the end, his hands were trembling. 49 high-grade elf tree species. There's no difference. All of them are of excellent quality. The elder of the Treasure Repository Palace said. Anyone could hear the slight tremor in his voice. Good. Ling Huashua said in a heavy tone. His eyes were shining. 49 high-grade elf tree species had a great impact on the elf tribe. One had to know that the elf tribe had been carefully cultivated for countless years. There were only slightly more than 100 mature high-grade elf tree species. 49 high-grade elf tree species. If half of them could be cultivated to maturity, it would be a big deal for the entire elf tribe. Excuse me, am I deceiving the elf king? At this time, Lu Ming looked at Ling Piao and asked indifferently. Ling Piao's face suddenly flushed red as if she had been slapped a few hundred times. You haven't seen the results yet, and you're already jumping out to say that others are deceiving you. This is a stupid behavior. How can someone like you be called a genius? Huh. Lu Ming said indifferently, full of sarcasm. Shame. Fury. Ling Piao was so angry that her whole body trembled. She stared at Lu Ming as if she wanted to skin Lu Ming alive. What? What did you say? Ling Piao squeezed out a sentence from her throat. Lu Ming actually said that she was stupid. She almost exploded. She wanted to rush over and tear Lu Ming apart. Hee hee. Lu Ming sneered a few times and didn't look at Ling Piao again. He completely disdained to pay attention to her. "Ah, I'm going to kill you." Ling Piao completely exploded. She screamed and was about to pounce on Lu Ming. Ling Huashua frowned. This Ling Piao was too much. Ling Huafeng saw Ling Huashua's dissatisfaction and shouted, "Piaoer, enough." A powerful aura spread out and pressed down on Ling Piao, causing her to be unable to move. At the same time, a voice rang out beside Ling Piao's ears. It was like thunder, and it finally shook Ling Piao awake. Huff! Ling Piao let out a long breath, but her eyes were still staring coldly at Lu Ming. "May I ask, Your Majesty, is this considered as completing the mission?" Lu Ming asked. "Of course, you did well." Ling Huashua's face finally revealed a smile. He had obtained 49 high-grade elf tree seeds, which was far more than the 12 high-grade elf tree seeds. Of course, he had completed the mission. Moreover, he had completed it perfectly. Although he didn't know how Lu Ming did it, the facts proved that Lu Ming wasn't only talented, but also had great luck. It wasn't impossible for him to be his son-in-law. In fact, he was already very satisfied with Lu Ming. "Elder, give out the reward." Ling Huashua looked at the elder of the Treasure Repository Palace. "That. Your Majesty," the female elder of the Treasure Repository Palace hesitated for a moment and said, "We didn't bring enough elf tree hearts to pay for the reward." The few elders of the Treasure Repository Palace also blushed. They didn't expect to obtain so many high-grade elf tree seeds this time, so they didn't bring that many elf tree hearts. After the previous reward, they didn't have enough elf tree hearts in their hands. 49 high-grade elf tree seeds, the reward was as high as 49,000 elf tree hearts. "How much more do you need?" "I'll pay for it first," Ling Huashua said. "We still need 30,000 elf tree hearts," the female elder of the Treasure Repository Palace said. Ling Huashua nodded and then waved his hand. A large pile of elf tree hearts flew out and flew towards the female elder of the Treasure Repository Palace. The female elder of the Treasure Repository Palace kept the elf tree hearts in a storage ring and then handed it to Lu Ming. "Mu Yun, this is your reward. You can count it," the female elder of the Treasure Repository Palace said. Lu Ming took the storage ring and scanned it with his spiritual sense. There were exactly 49,000 elf tree hearts inside. Lu Ming's face was full of smiles as he retracted it. Ling Piao and the others were so envious that their eyes were bloodshot, and their hearts were filled with regret. They were truly regretful. The reason why Lu Ming was able to obtain so many rewards was entirely because of their recommendation. Furthermore, Lu Ming had completed the mission they had set up. They no longer had any reason to stop Lu Ming and Ling Yue from being together. The other elf race geniuses present were all incomparably envious. 49,000 elf tree hearts, what kind of wealth was that? It was simply unimaginable. Not to mention the people of the younger generation, even some of the elders were very envious. Alright, this time's Holy Seed assessment can be considered to have ended successfully. All of you have worked hard. Go back and rest, Ling Huashua said as he announced the end of the Holy Seed assessment. "That. Your Majesty, I haven't finished counting my elf tree seeds." At this moment, Lu Ming stood up and said. There was a sudden silence in the main hall. All eyes were on Lu Ming, full of surprise. Lu Ming still had elf tree seeds that he hadn't finished counting. What did he mean? He had already taken out so many elf tree seeds before, and there were still elf tree seeds that he hadn't taken out yet? Why didn't he take them out at once before? Mu Yun, are you playing with us? Why didn't you take them out at once when you were counting them before? What do you mean by taking them out now? Is it fun? Do you think everyone has the time to play with you here? Ling Piao shouted again. She really couldn't help it. Seeing Lu Ming's harvest being so great and slapping her in the face, her mentality was about to explode. Now that she saw that there was a loophole to take advantage of and a chance to suppress Lu Ming, she spoke without hesitation, as if it was an instinct. "You're sending your face to be slapped again. You're really cooperative." Lu Ming sighed in his heart again. "I didn't take it out before because the elf tree seeds I counted before were all of a lower level, so it wasn't easy to mix them together. Can't you figure out such a simple logic?" Lu Ming looked at Ling Piao in disdain. Chapter 39-31. Lower level? You took out a high-level elven tree seed earlier, and its level is still relatively low? Therefore, Ling Piao shouted again, lower level? You said that the high-level elven tree seed from before was still relatively low level? Could it be that you obtained a holy tree seed? Hee, what a joke. Ling Piao's ridicule caused everyone's hearts to tremble violently. Holy tree seed? If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely not believe it. However, Lu Ming had taken out 49 high-level elven tree seeds previously. This in itself was an inconceivable matter. If it was said that Lu Ming had obtained a holy tree seed, it was not impossible. Ling Piao also thought of this point and immediately shut her mouth. Her eyes were wide open as she stared at Lu Ming. She prayed crazily in her heart. This was fake, this couldn't be true. Unfortunately, she was disappointed. Lu Ming looked at Ling Piao very seriously and pretended to be surprised. This time, you're not so stupid. Such a difficult question has been guessed. There's a reward, a reward. I'll reward you with half a elven wood heart. Do you want it? It really was. Everyone's hearts began to thump like drums. Even a universe overlord like Ling Huashua was no exception. His breathing became heavy. Mu Yun, is what you said true? Did you really get the holy tree seed? Ling Huashua asked with a trembling voice. This was inconceivable for someone of his status. With his cultivation and status, there was nothing that could make him so excited. However, the holy tree seed was one of them. Father, it's absolutely true. Mu Yun has indeed obtained the holy tree seed. Ling Yue said. Rumble. Everyone's hearts beat even more violently as they looked at Lu Ming eagerly. It was one thing to say it, but without seeing it with their own eyes, they still found it hard to believe. How many years had it been since the elves had obtained a holy tree seed? In any case, they couldn't count it. No, it can't be, Ling Piao's lips trembled as she prayed crazily in her heart. All of this wasn't true, it was fake. Her eyes were red as she stared at Lu Ming, hoping that Lu Ming would say that everything before was a joke. Unfortunately, it was destined that things would not go as he wished. A jade box appeared in Lu Ming's hand. This jade box was covered by a battle talisman, and there was a layer of light that enveloped the jade box. Senior Elf Emperor, how about I let you open this jade box? Lu Ming said to the Elven Emperor. All right. Ling Huashua quickly nodded. Whoosh. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the jade box flew toward the Elf Emperor. At this moment, Ling Piao really wanted to rush out and intercept the jade box. She wanted to put away the jade box and prevent the contents of the jade box from being revealed. However, she was only thinking about it. She did not dare to do so. If she really did that, even if she had a noble status, she would still die. The seed of the holy tree was more important to the elf tribe than anything else. It was even more important than the Elf Emperor. Ling Huashua held the jade box in his hand. Then, he took a deep breath and a wave of power spread out to break the talisman array on the jade box. Even with Ling Huashua's temperament, he couldn't help but feel nervous when the door was about to open. The eyes of the other elves were also fixed on the jade box. Of course, most of them were looking forward to it. They were looking forward to the seed of the holy tree. Only Ling Huafeng and Ling Piao were exceptions. They were looking forward to it being fake, empty, or just an ordinary elven tree seed. Crack! Finally, Ling Huashua opened the lid of the jade box. Everyone's hearts beat violently a few times with the sound of the lid opening. Boom! In the next moment, a life essence that was thousands of times more violent than a volcanic eruption surged out of the jade box. Then, a ray of light rushed out of the jade box. This ray of light was the holy tree seed. As soon as it rushed out, it wanted to fly away. However, how could it fly away in Ling Huashua's hands? With a thought from Ling Huashua, an invisible force locked onto the surroundings. No matter how hard the seed of the holy tree tried, it couldn't fly away. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the seed of the holy tree, including Ling Yue. Although Ling Yue knew that Lu Ming had obtained the seed of the holy tree, she had never seen it before. Now that she had seen it for the first time, she was naturally very surprised. It has spirituality and its life essence is soaring. It's the seed of the holy tree, it's really the seed of the holy tree. Ling Huashua muttered to himself, but his voice was trembling. It was obvious that he was extremely excited. In the next moment, the entire hall was in an uproar. Heavens, it's really the seed of the holy tree, it's really the seed of the holy tree. The ancestors have blessed us. After so many years, our elf clan has finally welcomed a new seed of the holy tree. Soon, the new holy tree will take root and sprout on our mother planet. Our elf clan is finally going to usher in glory again. Some of the elders of the elf clan were so excited that they couldn't control themselves. They were so excited that tears flowed down their faces. The seed of the holy tree was too important to the elf clan. It could determine the rise and fall of the elf clan. At this moment, Ling Piao and the others were completely stunned. Their eyes were filled with unwillingness, anger, and jealousy. Ha ha ha, Ling Huashua laughed out loud in high spirits. Good, good, good. Mu Yun, you've done a great service this time. Ling Huashua laughed. Now, no matter how he looked at it, Lu Ming was pleasing to the eye. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that Lu Ming was destined to be his son-in-law. Mu Yun was just lucky. Lu Ming said humbly. Seed of the Holy Mother Tree. Yes, the seed of the Holy Mother Tree. Where is the seed of the Holy Mother Tree? Bring me there quickly. At this moment, Ling Piao cried out again. The flames of greed in her eyes were about to turn into something substantial. The other sky prides of the elf clan were shocked. Yes, the seed of the Holy Mother Tree. The seed of the Holy Mother Tree that nurtured the seed of the Holy Tree was a great opportunity for the elf clan. It was especially great for the sky prides of the elf clan. Once they obtained it, they would be reborn and their talents would soar. It was no wonder that Ling Piao was so excited. If she could integrate the opportunity of the seed of the Holy Mother Tree, her talents would definitely rise to the top of the elf clan. Bring you there? You're thinking too much. Lu Ming looked at Ling Piao and said disdainfully. I have already obtained the opportunity of the Holy Seed Mother Tree. Immediately after, Ling Yue spoke up. The other elf clan geniuses all sighed. As for Ling Piao, her gaze was filled with raging flames of jealousy as she looked at Ling Yue. Damn it, why? Why is it that she fused with the opportunity of the Holy Seed Mother Tree? Why isn't it me? Ling Piao roared in her heart, wishing that she could cut Lu Ming and Ling Yue into 1,000 pieces. She was filled with jealousy towards Ling Yue. From the moment she was born, Ling Yue was the orthodox princess, but she wasn't. In terms of talent, she couldn't compare to Ling Yue. And now, this supreme opportunity had been obtained by Ling Yue, making her even more jealous. Chapter 39-32. Ling Piao's eyes were filled with crazy jealousy. Damned Mu Yun, damned, Ling Piao kept roaring in her heart. At this moment, she hated Lu Ming to the bones. At the same time, he was also incomparably regretful. It could be said that all of this was because she had helped Lu Ming and Ling Yue. If it wasn't for them recommending Lu Ming to participate in the Holy Seed examination, how could Lu Ming have obtained the Holy Tree Seed? How could Ling Yue have obtained the opportunity of the Holy Seed Mother Tree? If she hadn't forcefully restrained herself, she would have already spat out a mouthful of blood from anger. On the side, Ling Huafeng's expression was also very gloomy. However, he was more scheming and didn't show it. Yue, did you really obtain the opportunity of the Holy Seed Mother Tree? Ling Huashua was extremely excited. Yes, Royal Father. Ling Yue nodded affirmatively, and then her body emitted an aura. The moment this aura appeared, the expressions of many people present changed greatly. This was because this aura brought about a powerful pressure to them. It was as if a low-level race was facing a high-level race. Even Ling Huashua, Ling Huafeng, and the elders of the elf clan felt a powerful pressure. This kind of pressure had nothing to do with cultivation. It was only the pressure of the source of life. What a powerful pressure, what a strong elf bloodline. This old man has never seen such a dense elf bloodline in his life. An elder of the elf clan sighed. Indeed, the pressure of the elf bloodline that Ling Yue was emitting had exceeded their understanding. The other geniuses of the elf clan were all envious. Ling Yue's talent was already very high. In the elf clan, she was definitely one of the best. Now that she had obtained the opportunity of the Holy Seed Mother Tree, who knew how high her talent was now? One thing was certain, and that was that no one in the elf clan could compare to Ling Yue. Ling Piao was so jealous that she wanted to go crazy. The flames of jealousy seemed to want to burn her entire body. Good, good, good. Ling Huashua kept saying good because he was too excited. After a long while, Ling Huashua finally calmed down. Mu Yun, this time, you have done a great service to our elf clan. Speak, what reward do you want? Ling Huashua said. Reward? Lu Ming's mind began to race. Elven tree heart? Of course, the more the better. Ordinary secret techniques? 3,000 ancient secret techniques? He wanted it very much, but then he shook his head in his heart. Why would ordinary cultivators need so many ordinary secret techniques? It seemed abnormal. Most people wouldn't think much of it. They wouldn't think of the forbidden body. However, the people present were all top bosses of the elf race. They were all knowledgeable, especially Ling Huashua. He probably knew about the taboo physique. If he asked for a lot of ordinary secret techniques, it was hard to guarantee that these people wouldn't associate it with the taboo physique. That would be troublesome. Other than the elven wood heart and the secret technique, what else did he need? How about this? I'll tell you a few. What do you think? When he saw Lu Ming hesitating, Ling Huashua said, First, I'll give you 100,000 elven tree hearts. However, I'm afraid there aren't that many left in the treasury vault. I'll give you more in the future. How about it? Of course. Lu Ming's heart was also beating wildly. What kind of concept was 100,000 elven wood cores? The others were all envious and jealous. However, compared to the Holy Tree Seed, 100,000 elven wood cores were really nothing. Second, this Holy Tree token is for you. As soon as Ling Huashua's voice fell, a token appeared in his hand. The token flew to Lu Ming and was caught by Lu Ming. The token seemed to be carved out of a kind of wood. There was a big tree carved on it. It was the elf race's holy tree. Lu Ming revealed a puzzled look. He didn't know what this token was used for. With this token, you can enter and leave all the elf race's cultivation sacred grounds freely. You can cultivate for free. Ling Huashua explained. Lu Ming was moved. He could cultivate in all the elf race's cultivation sacred grounds. The elf race was a top race in the universe. Their cultivation sacred grounds were definitely extraordinary. This was also a huge temptation. Thank you, Senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and thanked him. Third, I'll agree to one condition. As long as it's not too much, I'll help you fulfill it. How about it? Ling Huashua continued. Everyone revealed expressions of envy, jealousy, and hatred. This third condition was 1,000 times more precious than the previous two. Who was Ling Huashua? He was the emperor of the elf race, an overlord of the universe. His condition was simply too precious. Lu Ming was also ecstatic. He cupped his fists again and said, "Thank you, Senior." Mu Yun, even now, you're still calling me Senior? Ling Huashua smiled. What? Lu Ming was stunned. What did this mean? But when he saw Ling Yue's flushed face, he immediately understood. Then, Lu Ming was a little confused. This, Lu Ming stammered. For a moment, he did not know how to respond. Young people are still shy. You and Yue are already engaged. You're not young anymore. I've decided to choose a day to marry you. Ling Huashua said. Lu Ming had completely proven himself by obtaining the holy tree seed. Moreover, the holy tree seed was too useful to the elf race, much more useful than the angel race's full help. Moreover, even if they were to marry into the angel race would at most give the elf race a little help. It was impossible for them to help too much. How could it be better than obtaining the holy tree seed? Therefore, Ling Huashua immediately decided to marry Ling Yue and Lu Ming, so as to cut off the idea of the angel race. The other youths of the elf race were envious and jealous, but most of them sighed. Lu Ming had made such a great contribution, and he was also engaged to Ling Yue. They simply couldn't compete with Lu Ming. Senior, wait a moment. At this moment, Lu Ming finally reacted and hurriedly shouted. What do you want to say? Ling Huashua looked at Lu Ming. He was somewhat dissatisfied that Lu Ming still called him Senior. Right now, I can't marry Princess Yue. Lu Ming said. What? The elves looked at Lu Ming as if he was a fool. Lu Ming actually refused to marry Ling Yue. If this wasn't a fool, then what was? Ling Yue's beauty was needless to say, there was no second in the elf race. Ling Yue's talent, after obtaining the opportunity of the holy seed mother tree, had reached an unimaginable level. Lu Ming actually rejected such a proud daughter of heaven? As long as he took Ling Yue, Lu Ming would immediately be able to rise to the top and become the prince consort of the elf race. Lu Ming actually refused? Many people couldn't figure it out, and neither could Ling Huashua. Why? Ling Huashua asked without frowning. Senior, because this junior cultivates a special cultivation technique, I must maintain my virgin body in order to maintain my peak condition. Once I lose my virginity, my talent will greatly decrease, and it will be very detrimental to my future cultivation. Lu Ming began to spout nonsense. Chapter 39-33. Lu Ming's words caused the elves present to look at each other in dismay. They couldn't tell if what Lu Ming said was true or false. In the universe, there were countless mysterious cultivation techniques and divine arts. Some of them did have all sorts of strange requirements. They had heard of many of these kinds of things that required one to maintain a virgin body. Ling Huashua frowned. He wasn't that easy to fool. He expressed his doubts in his heart, but he said, then what realm do you need to cultivate to before you can get married? This, I have to be at least above the divine emperor realm. Lu Ming said. Alright, then we'll wait until you reach the divine emperor realm before we get married. Ling Huashua said. He could tell that Lu Ming didn't seem to want to get married right now, so he didn't investigate whether what Lu Ming said was true or false. Many of the elven geniuses secretly heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Ling Yue hadn't married Lu Ming, they still had a chance. As for Ling Yue, she glanced at Lu Ming with hidden bitterness. Lu Ming pretended not to see it. This time, obtaining the seed of the holy tree is a huge matter. A year later, it will be the time for the ancestral worship ceremony. By then, most of the elves will return. I plan to hold a sacred worship ceremony, then to celebrate the elves obtaining the seed of the holy tree. At the same time, I want to introduce to the elves that Mu Yun is the benefactor who helped the elves obtain the seed of the holy tree. As for the details, we can start preparing when we return. Ling Huashua announced. Yes. Everyone nodded and dispersed one by one. Not long after, Lu Ming also took his leave. It seemed that he would have to stay in the elf clan for another year. However, a year's time passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming didn't mind. It just so happened that he could cultivate in the holy land of the elves. Do you elves have any high-intensity cultivation holy lands? The kind where you can fight fiercely and force yourself into a desperate situation? After leaving the hall, Lu Ming asked Ling Yue. Now that he had sufficient resources, it was time to attack the Divine Emperor realm. If he wanted to break through quickly, he had to force himself to continuously stimulate the potential in his body. This kind of battle required a life and death battle. However, without going out to adventure and train, how could there be so many life and death battles? They could only find more dangerous places to cultivate. Of course there are such places for cultivation. My elf tribe has a death canyon. There are many terrifying dead spirits in there. Elves often go there to train, but it's very dangerous. Many of my elf tribe's geniuses have fallen there. Do you really want to go there? Ling Yue said. Of course, the more dangerous, the better. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Alright, then I'll take you there. Ling Yue said. The entrance to the Death Canyon was in the Elven Palace. Soon, they arrived. Ling Yue did not go in to cultivate. She had just fused with the essence of the sacred seed mother tree and needed to meditate in seclusion. During this period of time, her cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds. Lu Ming entered the canyon alone. Lu Ming had the holy tree token, so he was naturally unimpeded. The moment Lu Ming stepped into Death Canyon, he felt a chilling aura. However, Lu Ming circulated his taboo power and easily blocked the invasion of the chilling aura. Lu Ming looked around. Although it was called a canyon, it was actually very vast. It was difficult to see the end of it at a glance. Roar! A tyrannical roar rang out. Following that, a tall figure pounced towards Lu Ming, bringing with it a terrifying gust of wind. A zombie! Lu Ming's gaze moved. The one pouncing towards him was a zombie. Its face was ferocious, and its cultivation was roughly at the quasi-emperor stage. The quasi-emperor stage was simply too weak. Lu Ming casually waved his palm and directly shattered the zombie into pieces. Lu Ming stepped forward and continued to go deeper into the Death Canyon. Then, zombies continuously appeared and attacked Lu Ming. However, these zombies were too weak and did not have much of a tempering effect on Lu Ming. Lu Ming easily killed his way out and continued to go deeper into the Death Canyon. Not long after, Lu Ming's path was blocked by a light screen. Lu Ming knew that after stepping through this light screen, he would reach the second level. That kind of light screen could separate the zombies. The strong cultivators of the elf clan had set up that kind of light screen on purpose. Their goal was to separate the zombies of different cultivation levels so that the young geniuses of the elf clan could practice. Lu Ming stepped out, passed through the light curtain, and entered the next level. There were still many zombies on the next level, but they were much stronger than before. All of them had the strength of the first godly emperor layer. However, Lu Ming wasn't interested. After a short time, he saw another light screen. After passing through that light screen, he went to the next level. On this level, the zombies had the strength of the second godly emperor layer. Lu Ming didn't stop, he continued to the next level. After passing through a few levels, Lu Ming finally felt the pressure. Because the zombies on this level were all at the fourth godly emperor layer. Ordinary cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer were extremely strong. These zombies were like godly weapons, they didn't fear death. They were much stronger than ordinary cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer. And there were many of them. Roar, 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 a large group of zombies of the fourth godly emperor layer threw themselves at Lu Ming. Their terrifying chi made Lu Ming tremble. Come! Come! Die! Shouted Lu Ming furiously. His battle formula had increased his fighting strength by 6 times. At the same time, he also used all sorts of ordinary secret skills and 2 of the 3,000 ancient secret skills. Apart from a few deadly weapons, Lu Ming also used his full strength. Boom, 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 the two sides collided and started fighting intensely. Lu Ming knocked away a few zombies, but he was also hit by a few zombies. His body shook violently and he was pushed back. Roar, 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 a few zombies immediately threw themselves at Lu Ming. Their sharp claws were like heavenly blades. They slashed at Lu Ming. How strong! Lu Ming's fighting spirit was high. He continued to attack the few zombies. The two sides started fighting intensely. After all, Lu Ming was only a quasi-emperor. There was a huge gap between him and a cultivator of the fourth godly emperor layer. Lu Ming could deal with an ordinary cultivator of the fourth godly emperor layer, but against so many zombies of the fourth godly emperor layer who didn't fear death, it was very difficult. Not only was it difficult, but it was also very dangerous. If he wasn't careful, the zombies could tear him to pieces. But Lu Ming wanted that kind of danger, that kind of pressure. In the intense battle, Lu Ming consecutively sent a few zombies flying. Numerous wounds appeared on the bodies of the zombies, and they almost shattered. But Lu Ming was in an even worse situation. He was blown away. 6 hideous wounds appeared on his body. He had almost been torn apart. The potential in each of his cells was constantly being stimulated, repairing his wounds. His wounds were recovering rapidly. But at that moment, 3 more zombies threw themselves at Lu Ming and tried to grab his head. Chapter 39-34. Lu Ming's body was almost torn apart. At that moment, 3 more zombies threw themselves at Lu Ming. They wanted to tear Lu Ming to pieces. All of a sudden, Lu Ming was in danger. However, in the face of such a crisis and pressure, Lu Ming was even more excited. He could feel that his cells were trembling and the energy in his cells was gushing out continuously. Die! Lu Ming let out a long roar. He was fearless. His entire body glowed. Hundreds of ordinary secret skills and 2 ancient secret skills were fully unleashed as he fought with the zombie. After a few fights, Lu Ming's injuries became even more serious. His clothes were torn and tattered. Once, his body was cut in 2 and barely connected. It's about time, thought Lu Ming. This wave of zombies was already strong enough. If he continued fighting, it would only bring more harm than good. Swish! Lu Ming quickly retreated. The zombies chased after him. However, Lu Ming quickly retreated to a layer of light. His silhouette flickered and he moved back to the first layer. The zombies of the fourth godly emperor layer were all blocked by the layer of light. The zombies in front of him were at the 3rd layer of the godly emperor realm. When they saw Lu Ming, they charged at him. However, the third layer of the godly emperor realm was much weaker than the fourth layer of the godly emperor realm. Lu Ming could deal with them easily. He retreated as he fought. In the end, he retreated to the outskirts of the Death Valley and sat down cross-legged to recover. His cells were filled with energy. Lu Ming's injuries were healing at an incredible speed. In just 10 minutes, his injuries were healed and he was in peak condition. I'm one step closer to the godly emperor layer. But I've also used up most of my potential. I need to continue absorbing the spiritual wood heart. Lu Ming took out the spiritual wood heart and started absorbing it. When his cells were full, Lu Ming went back to Death Valley and fought against the zombies of the fourth godly emperor layer. Just like that, Lu Ming started practicing cultivation in Death Valley. He wanted to break through to the fourth godly emperor layer as quickly as possible. In Ling Huafeng's mansion, Ling Piao's furious shriek rang out. In a large hall, Ling Huafeng, his daughter, and his son were gathered together. However, their expressions were extremely ugly. Damn it, Mu Yun, damn it Ling Yue. Ling Piao's face was incomparably sinister, like a crazy shrew. She wanted nothing more than to rush in front of Mu Yun and Ling Yue and tear them apart. She hated it. This time, not only had she been slapped in the face in front of so many elites and geniuses of the elf tribe, but she had also been slapped in the face because of jealousy. Jealous of Lu Ming's gains, jealous of Ling Yue's opportunities. Although her cultivation was higher than Ling Yue's, that was because she was much older than Ling Yue. However, with Ling Yue's current talent, she would soon catch up to her and ruthlessly trample on her. She would never have the strength to turn around. And the root cause of all this was herself. She was the one who recommended Lu Ming to participate in the Holy Seed examination. This was equivalent to her personally delivering so many opportunities to Lu Ming and Ling Yue. When she thought of this, her regret, her anger, was about to explode. Most importantly, this way, it would be equivalent to pushing Lu Ming and Ling Yue together. If that was the case, wouldn't Ling Yue be unable to marry that peerless genius of the Angel clan? If she wanted to borrow the power of the Angel clan, wouldn't her dream of rising to the top be completely ruined? No, absolutely not. She would not allow such a thing to happen. Father, are we just going to watch Ling Yue and Mu Yun be together? If that's the case, not only will we not be able to befriend the experts of the Angel clan, we will also become enemies and offend them. Ling Piao looked at Ling Huafeng and said. At this time, she was already in a mess and could only rely on Ling Huafeng. There's no rush. How could it be that easy for Mu Yun to walk together with Ling Yue? Ling Huafeng sneered. Father, what do you plan to do? Ling Piao's eyes lit up. Very simple, borrow a knife to kill someone. Ling Huafeng had a scheming expression as he said, send a message to Gabbert, saying that Ling Yue and Mu Yun will be married at the Elven Sacred Worship Ceremony in a year's time. Hearing this, Ling Piao immediately revealed a smile. Wonderful, when Gabbert hears this news, he will definitely not let Mu Yun off. At that time, Mu Yun will be dead for sure. The more Ling Piao spoke, the more excited she became, as if she could already see the scene of Lu Ming being killed. Gabbert was the genius of the Angel clan who was about to marry Ling Yue. He was a terrifying genius whose name shook the great desolate universe, and was unimaginably powerful. This was because this person was in existence on the universe's genius list. This person's talent and identity were completely worthy of Ling Yue. However, this person was a famous playboy, and there were at least 8,000 women who had harmed him. Ling Yue was proud and arrogant, so how could she marry this person? As long as he passed the news to Gabbert, Lu Ming would be dead for sure. Father, I'll do it right away. Ling Piao said, reinvigorated. Time flew by. 1 month, 3 months, half a year, soon, a year had passed. Outside the Death Canyon, Lu Ming sat cross-legged and sighed. I still haven't broken through. It seems that I still need an opportunity to break through to the Divine Emperor realm. Lu Ming pondered. After a year of life and death battles, he had constantly stimulated his potential. His cultivation had improved a lot. Now, his cultivation was infinitely close to the Divine Emperor realm. He felt that he was just a little bit away from reaching it. If an ordinary person wanted to complete this accumulation, it would take hundreds of millions of years. As for him, he had completed this accumulation in just a short year. Of course, the consumption was also extremely shocking. In this year, Lu Ming had refined a total of 1,200 elven wood cores. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to afford it. However, Lu Ming was rich now. He had 50,000 to 60,000 elven wood cores, and the elven tribe would give him another 100,000 elven wood cores. He could still afford to consume 1,200 elven wood cores. It seems that the opportunity to break through can't be obtained by fighting in the Death Canyon. Lu Ming thought. Because in the Death Canyon, Lu Ming would not really face a life and death crisis. Although it seemed dangerous, it was actually all under his control. For example, he still had the Zephyr Bead and the mysterious Ice Rod, which he hadn't used yet. With this kind of confidence, he wouldn't be in a life-or-death situation. Therefore, it would be difficult for him to break through the Divine Emperor realm. There's still half a month before the Elven tribe's sacred worshipping ceremony. After the sacred worshipping ceremony, I'll leave the Elven tribe and find an opportunity to break through to the Divine Emperor realm. Lu Ming planned in his heart. Then, Lu Ming got up and left the Death Canyon. However, as soon as he left the Death Canyon, Lu Ming's eyes moved. Because he sensed that someone had sent him a message from the illusory heavenly jade. Chapter 39-35. Lu Ming's mind sank into the dreamy divine jade. He immediately saw who had sent him the message. It was the sect leader of the Fengdu Sword Sect, Sect Leader Wang. Seeing the news that Sect Leader Wang had sent him, Lu Ming's eyes shone brightly. The Heavenly Palace is finally going to recruit heavenly soldiers. A voice filled with anticipation came out of Lu Ming's mouth. The news that Sect Leader Wang had sent him was that the Heavenly Palace was about to start recruiting heavenly soldiers. The 4 Heavenly Palace had already sent out news to the desolate universe that they would begin recruiting heavenly soldiers a year later, on the day of Extreme Een. Why was it the 4 Heavenly Palace and not the 5 Heavenly Palace? It was because the 5th Heavenly Palace had never recruited heavenly soldiers from the outside, so it was naturally not within its scope. A year later, it's still not too late. Lu Ming secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The news was sent more than 2 months ago. According to the time, there was still about 10 months left. It wouldn't be too late to rush back to the Fengdu Sword Sect after participating in the Elven Sacred Worship ceremony. Lu Ming returned to the elves' residence. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. The location of the Elven Sacred Worship ceremony was still on the stump of the holy tree. On this day, there was a sea of people on the stump of the holy tree. Countless elves had gathered there. The sacred worship ceremony was a major event for the elves. Most of the elves who were qualified to participate would participate. Unless they had an important mission or were at the critical moment of a breakthrough, they would not participate. I heard that His Majesty has something important to announce during this sacred worship ceremony. Yes, I heard about it too, but I've asked around, but I haven't heard anything about it. In short, I know that this matter seems to be extremely important to us elves. Many experts who were on missions outside have been summoned back. We don't have to think too much about it. We'll know soon anyway. At the scene, many people were discussing. His Majesty has arrived. A loud shout spread throughout the entire world. Everyone's eyes looked in one direction. In that direction, a group of people stepped on the air. They were the Elf Emperor Ling Huashua, Ling Yue, Ling Huafeng, and the others. Lu Ming also followed beside Ling Yue. "Greetings, Your Majesty." All of the elves bowed to Ling Huashua. Ling Huashua nodded and waved his hand, indicating for everyone to rise. Everyone stood up, and many people's gazes fell on Lu Ming. "Who is that? You're not an elf, but you can stand beside His Majesty and the princess?" Someone asked in surprise. Not everyone paid attention to the illusory heavenly jade and knew the name Mu Yun. Many people did not pay attention to outside matters and had never heard of Lu Ming's name. "That's Mu Yun, the princess's fiancé. You don't know him?" "What? The princess's fiancé?" Many people were shocked and looked at Lu Ming with even more curiosity. It was as if they wanted to see through Lu Ming and see what kind of person was worthy of one of the 20 pearls of the universe, Ling Yue. Of course, most of them were skeptical, especially after knowing that Lu Ming came from an ordinary universe-level power in the Iron Sea star field. They were even more skeptical and felt that Lu Ming was not worthy of Ling Yue at all. Facing the gazes of the crowd, Lu Ming's expression did not change. He stood there calmly, as if he had nothing to do with it. He really wanted to stay out of it. He was looking forward to ending the sacred worship ceremony as soon as possible and returning to the Fengdu Sword sect to prepare for the recruitment of heavenly soldiers for the heavenly palace. "I believe you are all very curious as to why this is called the sacred worship ceremony, right?" Ling Huashua said. Many people revealed curious expressions. In the past, it should have been called the ancestral worship ceremony. Only when the holy tree was still around would it be called the sacred worship ceremony. However, the elven sacred tree had long been cut off and destroyed. Why was it called the sacred worship ceremony this time? Many of the elves were puzzled. "That's because my clan has obtained another seed of the holy tree." Ling Huashua's impassioned voice spread in all directions. The scene suddenly fell into silence. At the scene, there were at least 1 million elves. They were all middle and upper echelons of the elves. At this moment, all of them had their eyes wide open as they stared at Ling Huashua, unable to utter a single word. Slowly, the sound of heavy breathing could be heard from the scene. Then, like a volcano erupting, all of his emotions exploded out at once. "Holy tree seed, oh my God, did I hear wrongly? My clan actually obtained another holy tree seed? Is there something wrong with my ears? I just heard His Majesty say that he obtained the holy tree seed. I heard it too. Oh my God, is that true?" The scene was in an uproar. All of the elves roared in disbelief. "You didn't hear wrongly. My clan has obtained the holy tree seed," Ling Huashua added. This time, almost all of the elves were excited. Some of them even jumped up. The elves actually obtained the holy tree seed again. This was a joyous occasion. With the holy tree seed, it meant that the elves were about to rise again. In the future, it would not be impossible for them to return to their previous peak. This was beneficial to all of the elves. Of course, the word "almost" was used because there were still people who were unhappy. Naturally, it was Ling Piao and a few others. The holy tree Zongzi is really the holy tree seed. How did my clan obtain the holy tree seed? It has been many years since the holy tree seed appeared in my clan. This time, we actually obtained the holy tree seed. Who exactly obtained it? He is the hero of our clan. Many of them shouted excitedly. Quiet down. Ling Huashua waved his hand and the scene immediately quieted down. When the holy worshipping ceremony is held this time, we will also announce the person who obtained the holy tree seed. Ling Huashua said. Many of them were looking forward to it. A year ago, my clan conducted the holy seed assessment. I believe everyone knows about it. Ling Huashua said. Holy seed assessment? Could it be that the holy tree seed was obtained during the holy seed assessment? However, no one from my clan has entered the 8th level of the ancestral land for countless years. How could they have obtained the holy tree seed? Could it be that a peerless prodigy has been born in my clan this time and has entered the 8th level or even higher? Based on what His Majesty said, it must be related to the holy seed assessment this time. That must be it. Ling Huashua's words caused many people to discuss and speculate. You guessed it right. The seed of the holy tree was brought out from the ancestral land during the holy seed assessment. Ling Huashua said and confirmed everyone's guess. It was really obtained during the holy seed assessment. Which prodigy is it? Who is it? Is it Hua Wuji or Ling Tianfei? Or Princess? Everyone kept guessing who had obtained the holy tree seed. They guessed the strongest prodigies of the elves but felt that it was unlikely. Could those prodigies really do it? From the beginning to the end, no one thought of Lu Ming. An outsider could obtain the holy tree seed? They did not believe it at all. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 39-36. Many elves were guessing, but none of them could guess the reason. In the end, they cast their gazes on Ling Huashua, hoping to get an answer from him. Ling Huashua nodded, and was about to say Lu Ming's name. At this moment, a few streaks of light flew over and landed in front of Ling Huashua. Your Majesty, the people from the angel race are here. One of the burly men reported. People from the angel race? Why are they here at this time? Ling Huashua frowned. As for Ling Yue, her expression turned ugly. Ever since she said that she wanted to marry the angel race, Ling Yue had been very sensitive to the angel race. Behind him, Ling Piao and the rest curled their lips into a smile. There was a cold glint in their eyes when they glanced at Lu Ming. Who is the angel race? Is Gabbert here? Ling Huashua asked. If Gabbert came personally, things would be troublesome. No, 2 old men from the angel race have come. Their cultivations are unfathomable. In addition, 2 young men have come. They are Gabbert's followers. Gabbert did not come personally. The burly man from the elf race reported. Ling Huashua frowned. After all, the angel race was one of the top 10 races. Moreover, they had the heavenly palace backing them. They were no small matter. No matter who came, they could not be underestimated. Invite them in. Ling Huashua instructed. At the scene, many elves were sighing, their hearts itching unbearably. Originally, they were still looking forward to knowing who had obtained the seed of the holy tree. But now, they didn't know for the time being. They could only suppress the curiosity in their hearts and wait. Yes, sir. A few burly men flashed and left the place. Not long after, a few figures stepped on the air and arrived. From afar, one could see the pure white holy light illuminating the sky. It was the holy light of the angel race. There were a total of 4 angels. There were 2 old angels and 2 young angels. They were all covered in pure white holy light. Their eyes were cold and arrogant. They looked down at all the elves with condescending eyes. Greetings, Elf Emperor. One of the old angels casually cupped his fists towards Ling Huashua. As for the other 3, they didn't move at all. It was as if it was enough to have a representative. I wonder why the friends of the angel race have suddenly come to my elf race? Ling Huashua said. It's very simple. Bring the elf princess Ling Yue back to my angel race's genius, Gabbert. The elder from the angel race said. His face was like a horse's face, and his eyes were cold. He looked a little unreasonable. His tone was as if he was giving an order. It was as if he said that, others would do. Ling Huashua's expression darkened. Many of the elves of the elf races them. If they wanted to form a marriage alliance with the elf tribe and marry the elf princess, they should at least make it a little more grand. Did they just send a few people over, gave a command, and then wanted to take the elf princess away? This was an insult to my daughter. Yue doesn't seem to be engaged to Gilbert. How could they be married? Lin, of Elf Emperor, what do you mean by this? The old angel looked at Ling Huashua. His face darkened as he continued, you sent someone to talk to young Master Gabbert. Do you want to go back on your word now? Are you playing with young Master Gabbert? Are you playing with my angel race? Ling Huashua's expression was somewhat ugly. He didn't know how to answer. Previously, he had indeed sent someone to communicate with Gabbert when he wanted to form a marriage alliance with the angel race. However, it was only a short communication and hadn't been officially decided yet. However, the other party said that he was playing with the angel race. This was not a small matter. Even if he was the Elf Emperor, he couldn't afford to bear it. Seeing that Ling Huashua didn't say anything, the old angel snorted coldly and continued, other than this, we have another reason for coming here. That is to kill someone here. As soon as these words were spoken, the elves' expressions became even uglier. Not only did the angel race want to take away the elf princess in a commanding tone, but they also wanted to kill someone here. This was simply outrageous. Did they really think that the elf race was just for decoration? Who do you want to kill? Ling Huashua asked in a deep voice. Who is Mu Yun? The old angel's cold voice rang out once again. His gaze swept across the surroundings, but after a round, it finally landed on Lu Ming. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He was a little surprised that these angels were actually looking for him. The other angels were also surprised. They all looked at Lu Ming. However, they quickly realized that it was most likely because of Ling Yue. Previously, Ling Yue had said that she was going to marry the genius of the angel race, Gabbert. However, after that, Ling Yue had a fiancé called Mu Yun, causing an uproar. It would be strange if Gabbert let Lu Ming off. He had come to look for Lu Ming. I am Mu Yun. Hiding, it was obvious that he couldn't hide. Lu Ming generously admitted it. Immediately, the eyes of the four angels were like lightning, emitting a cold killing intent. Very good, an ant-like thing. You dare to touch the person that young Master Gabbert has set his eyes on? You don't know life from death. I'll send you on your way. The old angel who had been speaking all this while spoke indifferently, as if he was looking down at an ant. After saying that, a pure white holy light slashed towards Lu Ming like a divine sword. Fast, fast to the extreme, and terrifying to the extreme. Dangerous, extremely dangerous. Lu Ming's body instantly tensed up. He wanted to dodge, but he discovered that his body couldn't move at all. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move at all. It was as if he was suppressed by an invisible force. This is bad. Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. This old man from the angel race was too terrifying. His strength was boundless, far from what Lu Ming could contend against. The difference was too great. He couldn't even resist. Then I'm going to be killed just like that. As expected, women are a source of calamity, a thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Soon, the holy sword light was about to hit Lu Ming. If this sword hit Lu Ming, no matter how mysterious Lu Ming's forbidden body was, only death would await him. Even if Lu Ming was left with only one cell and could be resurrected, it would be useless. This sword would ensure that not a single cell would be left behind. At this critical moment, the Elf Emperor Ling Huashua made his move. A divine light burst out from Ling Huashua's hand. It arrived first and bombarded the holy light slashed by the old angel. There was no sound at all. There was no rumbling, no explosion, and no shockwaves that swept out in all directions. The old angel's sword light had disappeared without a sound. It didn't stir up any waves. Elf Emperor, what do you mean by this? The old angel looked at the Elf Emperor with a cold face. You can't kill him. Today, no one can kill him. Ling Huashua said. Lu Ming had made a great contribution to the elf race. Today, no matter what, Ling Huashua couldn't watch Lu Ming be killed. Chapter 39-37. The elder from the angel race had a gloomy look on his face. He stared at Ling Huashua and said, Elf Emperor, are you going to make an enemy out of the angel race? How would I dare to make an enemy out of the angel race? However, Mu Yun is not only my son-in-law, but he has also contributed greatly to the elf race. With me here today, no one can kill him. Also, why does the angel race want to kill him? What's your reason for doing so? Ling Huashua said. The elder from the angel race didn't know how to answer for a moment. He couldn't possibly say that Mu Yun was Gabert's rival in love, so he wanted to kill him. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? Elf Emperor, are you sure you want to intervene? The elder from the angel race asked. That's right. The Elf Emperor nodded. He was very decisive and strong. Lu Ming had obtained the seed of the holy tree, which was a great contribution to the elf race. He absolutely couldn't let Lu Ming be killed by the angel race, especially here today. Good, very good, very good. The elf race is getting bolder and bolder, the elder from the angel race nodded repeatedly. The cold light in his eyes was about to overflow. However, there was nothing he could do. Although they had 2 experts, it was useless. After all, the elf race was the emperor of the elf race, an overlord in the universe. His strength was unfathomable, far beyond what they could compare to. Even in the entire angel race, there weren't many who could be a match for the elf emperor. If the elf emperor wanted to protect Lu Ming, the few of them wouldn't be able to kill Lu Ming at all. Ling Huashua didn't continue to speak, but his gaze was very firm, indicating his position. How about this? At this time, another elder from the angel race transmitted his voice to the previous elder from the angel race. Then, he transmitted his voice to the 2 young angels. The 2 young angels nodded. Cold killing intent flashed in their eyes. One of them stepped out and said to Lu Ming from afar, Wu Yun, I heard that you are extremely talented and powerful. You and I belong to the younger generation. I wonder if you dare to fight with me? He wanted to challenge Lu Ming. Ling Huashua frowned slightly. The other party was also a member of the younger generation, and he was challenging Lu Ming. This was a duel between the younger generation, and he had no reason to interfere. Otherwise, if word got out, it would be said that he had innocently interfered in the struggle of the younger generation and was bullying the weak. It would be easy for the angels to have a reason to blame the elves. Clearly, it was not convenient for the elder to make a move, so they sent the younger ones. They wanted to use the younger generation of geniuses to deal with Lu Ming. What? I'm just a subordinate of young Master Gabert. If you don't even dare to accept the challenge, young Master Gabert can suppress you with just one finger. The young angel stepped forward, pressing towards Lu Ming. His powerful aura pressed down on Lu Ming. That person had the strength of the first godly emperor layer. The elves all looked at Lu Ming, wondering if Lu Ming would dare to accept the challenge. Furthermore, many people were dissatisfied with the elf emperor. They believed that the elf emperor shouldn't offend the angel clan because of Lu Ming. Even if Lu Ming was Ling Yue's fiancé, he shouldn't have offended the angel clan because of this. Offending the angel clan was no small matter. It would greatly affect the future development of the elves. The elves had just obtained the seed of the holy tree, so they shouldn't offend the angel clan. They should befriend the angel clan to give the elves some time to develop. Moreover, a mere Mu Yun had done nothing to the elves. What ability did he have to make the elf emperor offend the angel clan for him? Many people thought that the elf emperor was wrong, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. Do you dare to accept the challenge? If you don't dare, quickly kneel down and admit your mistake. If you cripple your own cultivation, I can spare your dog life. The young angel continued to press towards Lu Ming. His gaze was oppressive, and his white cloak fluttered under the effect of the air waves. Since you want to fight, then let's fight. Lu Ming's expression was calm as his indifferent voice sounded out. He took a step forward and his aura soared into the sky. The angel clan relied on their strength to bully others. Lu Ming was not a person who was afraid of trouble. If the old one couldn't beat him, could it be that he was afraid of the young one? Since the other party wanted to challenge him, who cared what race he was from? Very good, Elf Emperor. Did you see that? This is a battle between young people. Mu Yun has already agreed. Now, you have no room to interfere, right? The old man from the angel clan sneered at the Elf Emperor. The Elf Emperor remained silent. It was a battle between young people, and Lu Ming had already agreed to the challenge. He was indeed unable to interfere. Jia Song, go and take Mu Yun's head. Go back and see young Master Gabbert. The old man from the angel clan said to the young man from the angel clan. His name was Jia Song. Don't worry. Jia Song's eyes flickered with a sinister killing intent. The aura on his body became even stronger, and his entire body was enveloped by a pure white holy light. Suddenly, snow-white wings extended out from his back. A total of 3 pairs, 6 wings. This was a 6-winged seraph. The wings of the angel clan were an important indicator of their talent. The more wings they had, the higher their talent. Just like the dragon's dragon claws, the more dragon claws they had, the higher their talent. Of course, this was not absolute. For example, the number 1 expert of the dragon clan, the world-destroying black dragon Ao Qian, was a 5-clawed black dragon. He had suppressed countless outstanding prodigies of the dragon clan. However, this was only a rare case. Therefore, a 6-winged seraph was an extremely shocking prodigy among the angel clan. Most of the angels had 2 wings, and the more talented ones had 4. I'll take your head with one move. Jia Song's eyes shone brightly as a cross-shaped holy sword appeared on his body. He grasped it in his hand. This cross-shaped holy sword was his origin secret technique, and he had severed 4 shackles. As soon as he finished speaking, Jia Song's entire body turned into a pure white sword light that illuminated the sky. He slashed towards Lu Ming, aiming for Lu Ming's neck. Swoosh! After that, Lu Ming also moved. He turned into a gust of wind and flew towards Jia Song. His hand was like a blade as he slashed at Jia Song. With a loud bang, the pure white sword light that Garson had transformed into trembled non-stop. Cracks appeared on it at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then, with a bang, the sword light exploded. Jia Song was pushed back violently as he coughed up blood. His original secret technique, the cross-shaped holy sword, had exploded. Not only that, but there were also cracks on his body. He looked like a broken piece of porcelain. This, many people were astonished. This young genius of the angel clan had been defeated just like that. He had been so arrogant a moment before, but now he had been defeated so easily. That's all you've got? The angel clan is mediocre. Lu Ming's faint voice could be heard. In his opinion, Jia Song's strength was mediocre. Even though he had the strength of the first godly emperor layer, he wasn't as strong as Hua Tian from the elf clan. Chapter 39-38. Lu Ming had fought against Hua Tian before. He had the impression that Hua Tian was stronger than Jia Song. Jia Song was probably just an ordinary young genius from the angel clan. That was normal. Even though the angel clan was strong, they were called the top 10 geniuses of the universe. They were strong as a whole, but not all of them could defeat the geniuses of other clans. The geniuses of other clans could still defeat the geniuses of the angel clan. Hua Tian was one of the top geniuses of the angel clan. Jia Song wasn't one of the top geniuses of the Angel clan. Jia Song was embarrassed and angry at Lu Ming's contempt. He spat out another mouthful of blood. The two old men of the Angel clan pulled long faces. "La Mo, you go," said one of the old men to the other young man telepathically. La Mo was the other young man's name. La Mo nodded and his silhouette flickered. He appeared in front of Lu Ming. "I'll fight against you." La Mo spoke coldly. The rich sacred light seemed to turn the world white. His powerful aura was like the waves of the sea, constantly pressing toward Lu Ming. Second Godly Emperor Layer. La Mo had the strength of the second Godly Emperor Layer, one layer higher than Jia Song's. Furthermore, a pair of wings extended from La Mo's back. He had 4 pairs of wings. He was an 8-winged angel. Without a doubt, he was a terrifying cultivator. His cultivation level was higher than Jia Song's, and he was also more talented than Jia Song. He only has the strength of the second Godly Emperor Layer and he wants to challenge a quasi-emperor? How shameless! Thought many people from the fairy clan. Of course, they didn't dare say it out loud. They didn't want to offend the Angel clan. A cross-shaped sacred sword condensed on La Mo's body. He pointed the sacred sword at Lu Ming and said in a cold voice, "Do you dare to fight me?" "Why wouldn't I dare? I hope you won't disappoint me," said Lu Ming calmly. Even though his opponent was strong, he wasn't afraid. When he was on the dragon's mother planet, he was already on the opposite side of the heavenly palace. Furthermore, the relationship between the angels and the heavenly palace was very good. They were backed by the heavenly palace. It could be said that sooner or later, he would go against the angels. It was a good opportunity to test the strength of the angels and see how strong they were. 8-winged angels were considered high-level prodigies in the angel tribe. After all, 10-winged angels or 12-winged angels were very rare in the angel tribe. "Hee, what a big tone," La Mo said coldly as he flapped his 8 wings. His body was like a beam of white light as he charged towards Lu Ming. Before many people could react, his sword light had already slashed towards Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming also made his move. Similarly, his palm was like a saber as he slashed out. Boom! Their attacks collided, and an earth-shattering boom erupted. Strong winds blew, and holy light overflowed. The two figures retreated at the same time. This move was evenly matched. La Mo's expression turned even colder. He increased his speed to the maximum and charged toward Lu Ming. Beams of pure white sword gleams completely engulfed Lu Ming. Lu Ming used the Great Godly Wind technique and the Great Shattering technique to increase their strength. His palms kept slashing out. Boom, boom, boom. Their attacks kept colliding. In the blink of an eye, they had already exchanged a few dozen attacks. Suddenly, rumbling sound spread in the air. Someone groaned and retreated. It was La Mo. La Mo was the one who had retreated. There was blood on the corner of his mouth. After a few dozen attacks, he was at a disadvantage. He wasn't a match for Lu Ming. He was struck by Lu Ming's palm and coughed up blood as he was pushed back. It wasn't that La Mo wasn't strong. Actually, La Mo's strength was astonishing. Even though he only had the strength of the second Godly Emperor layer, he could compete with cultivators of the fourth Godly Emperor layer. He could even suppress ordinary cultivators of the fourth Godly Emperor layer. But during that year, Lu Ming had become stronger and stronger. He was infinitely close to breaking through to the Godly Emperor layer. At that moment, he hadn't used his battle formula to increase his fighting strength by 6 times, but he could already suppress La Mo. How strong! Is that Mu Yun's fighting strength? How terrifying! It was the first time for most of the elves to see Lu Ming fight. They were all dumbstruck. He was only a quasi-emperor layer cultivator, but he was already so strong. How astonishing! The faces of the two angels were also very serious. Killing intent constantly flashed in their eyes. It seems like you're not that strong. Lu Ming spoke calmly and stepped out. His palm blade was like a mountain, slashing toward La Mo continuously. Angel battle body, eternally invincible, die! Shouted La Mo. His long hair fluttered in the wind. His body was filled with holy light. At that moment, it seemed like he had turned into light. He didn't have a body of flesh and blood anymore. At that moment, the angel clan was extremely strong. They were born with an angel battle body. They had incredible fighting strength. Ordinary clans couldn't compete with them. La Mo raised his fighting strength to the maximum and attacked Lu Ming. Come! Shouted Lu Ming. His chi was like an erupting volcano. He became even stronger. Battle formula, 6 times fighting strength, activated. Boom boom boom. Lu Ming's right hand was like a blade, his left hand was like a fist. He kept attacking La Mo. The two of them kept colliding. They exchanged a dozen attacks. However, La Mo still couldn't win. He was completely suppressed by Lu Ming. After a dozen attacks, Lu Ming slashed at La Mo's wing. La Mo coughed up blood and retreated. His face was deathly pale. Bang! Then, Lu Ming threw another punch at La Mo's chest. La Mo screamed miserably. His chest had been penetrated. His heart seemed to have turned into light, like a ball of light that was beating continuously. At this moment, countless light dots were converging towards his heart, constantly repairing it. The angel battle body is really amazing. You can recover quickly after being hit by my forbidden power. Lu Ming couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. After reaching the Divine Emperor realm, especially for existences like La Mo, their vitality was terrifyingly strong. Ordinary attacks could hardly harm them. Only a terrifying force could hurt them. For example, divine power that had been awakened many times or other terrifying powers. Forbidden power was undoubtedly the most terrifying. It was almost impossible to recover after being hit by a forbidden power. However, La Mo was still recovering quickly. This showed how terrifying his physique was. That was the Angel clan's talent. Even so, La Mo's injuries were very serious. His strength was greatly affected. Lose for me. Lu Ming shouted and attacked La Mo again. You want to defeat me? Dream on. La Mo roared as a silver cross flew out from between his eyebrows. Boom! As soon as the silver cross flew out, it expanded rapidly and emitted a terrifying wave. A ray of holy light flew out of the silver cross and blasted at Lu Ming. Chapter 39-39. La Mo took out a silver cross which was emitting holy light. He sensed danger. That silver cross was a terrifying weapon. Crush it! Lu Ming hollered. 3 gravity pearls flew out from his wrist. Terrifying gravity permeated the air and shrouded the beam of holy light. However, the holy light only trembled slightly before it broke through the gravitational force of the gravity orb. It continued to charge toward Lu Ming at an astonishing speed. Lu Ming had the impression that the holy light was as strong as a cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer. Even if Lu Ming used his full strength, he couldn't block the attack of a cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer. He couldn't compete with Lu Ming directly, so he had to use a deadly weapon. But who didn't have a deadly weapon? A moment later, a round pearl appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Zephyr Pearl. With a thought, he circulated the great divine wind skill and a gust of terrifying gale emerged from the gale pearl. Under Lu Ming's control, the gale transformed into a wind blade and flew toward the holy light. With a puff, The holy light was destroyed by the wind blade. You can't defeat me, so you use a powerful weapon. You think you only have powerful weapons? Said Lu Ming disdainfully. He continued absorbing the strength of the Zephyr Pearl. Whoosh, 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 the terrifying gale transformed into a tornado that swept towards Lamo. Lamo's expression changed drastically. He used all of his strength and poured all of his god power into the silver cross. The silver cross emitted a resplendent light and became as large as a mountain. It pressed down on the tornado, wanting to destroy it. However, when the silver cross came into contact with the tornado, the silver cross shook violently and was directly thrown back. Even though the silver cross was powerful, it couldn't compare to the Zephyr Pearl. It couldn't compare to Ling Yuwei's royal elf bow. It couldn't compare to Xiao Wuji's Azura sword either. It couldn't compare to Di Jiani's rusty sword either. In front of Lamo, who had the strength of the second godly emperor layer, he could only use the strength of the sixth godly emperor layer. If Lu Ming did not have the Zephyr Pearl, he would not have been able to block the silver cross's attack. However, Lu Ming had the Zephyr Pearl and could easily crush his opponent. The tornado blew away the silver cross and continued to sweep towards Lamo. Lamo's expression was extremely ugly. If he was hit by this tornado, he would definitely die. Stop! An elder from the angel race coldly snorted and blasted out a palm. He actually directly interfered with the battle, wanting to kill Lu Ming. However, Ling Huashua's body emitted a divine light that easily blocked the attack of the old angel. This is a duel between young people. As an elder, it's better not to interfere. If word gets out, it will be bad for the reputation of the angel race, Ling Huashua said calmly. It sounded like he was doing this for the sake of the reputation of the angels. The elder from the angel race was furious. But with Ling Huashua around, he couldn't do anything. The tornado formed by the gale was about to hit Lamo. Just then, Lamo took out a jade talisman and shouted, "Young Master Gabbert, help!" As soon as Lamo's voice fell, the jade talisman emitted a dense divine light. A terrifying aura spread out from the jade talisman. The next moment, a figure appeared above the jade talisman. It was a handsome young man in a white robe. His hair was also snow white. He stood with his hands behind his back, but he had a domineering aura and a demeanor that could swallow the universe. His eyes were like lightning as he glanced at Lu Ming. Then, he used his fingers like a sword and slashed down. A shocking sword light shone, breaking the void and illuminating the starry sky. Poof! The next moment, the tornado formed by the gale was split in half by the sword light. Lamo was overjoyed that he was saved. "Young Master Gabbert, thank you," Lamo said respectfully. Many people were shocked. Gabbert, this was the peerless hero of the angel race. His name shook the universe, and he was on the universe prodigy list. He was recognized by all the great races and even the heavenly palace. Gabbert. Yes, he's Gabbert. I've seen his portrait in the dream jade. It's really him. He's actually here. No, it's not a physical body. It seems to be a projection or a clone. Many people saw through the trick. This was not Gabbert's body. It was just a projection or a divine power clone that had been sealed in the jade talisman beforehand. Gabbert, behind him, Ling Piao and the others were overjoyed. As for Ling Yue, her face darkened and became a little ugly. "You may leave." Gabbert's divine power clone glanced at Lamo indifferently and instructed. Lamo respectfully left. Gabbert looked at Lu Ming, and a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. The next moment, he took a step forward, and a bright divine light rushed out of his body. It turned into a sword of holy light and slashed at Lu Ming. Gabbert was very decisive. Without saying a word, he directly attacked Lu Ming and launched a sure-kill attack. Not far away, Ling Huashua's eyes flashed. He wanted to stop him, but in the end, he stopped. Speaking of which, Gabbert was also part of the younger generation, so he had no reason to attack. Moreover, Gabbert's identity and status were not small. Even in the angel race, he was a big shot. He still had some misgivings in his heart. The sword light locked onto Lu Ming and burst out with cold killing intent, about to launch a sure kill attack. Lu Ming's pupils contracted rapidly. This sword gave him a strong sense of danger. Buzz buzz buzz. The 3 gravity pearls were constantly vibrating. The gravity was pushed to the extreme, enveloping Gabbert's sword light. However, it was useless. Gabbert's sword light did not slow down at all. Gale! Lu Ming shouted and used the Great God Wind technique. He drew out the power inside the Gale Pearl and formed a storm that swept Gabbert's sword light. Rumble! Gabbert's sword light collided with the flaming storm, causing a deafening explosion. However, one could see that Gabbert's sword light slashed down, and the sword chi soared into the sky, constantly breaking through the flaming storm. In the end, the flaming storm was split into 2. The sword light did not stop and continued to slash at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's pupils contracted rapidly. With a thought, Qiu turned into armor and covered his entire body. Moreover, a silver spear condensed in his palm. Swoosh! Lu Ming stabbed out with his spear, piercing the sword light. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion sounded. Lu Ming's body shook violently. He retreated rapidly and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, it was only a minor injury. Lu Ming's cells were constantly surging with power. Lu Ming's injuries were instantly healed. What a terrifying power! Lu Ming's expression was quite solemn. Gabbert's power was beyond his expectations. One had to know that Lu Ming's Great God Wind technique had reached the small success stage. The stronger the Great God Wind technique was, the stronger the power inside the Gale Pearl could be drawn out. Even so, it could not block Gabbert's attack. Chapter 39-40. Gilbert's swordlight broke through the raging wind storm, but a portion of its power was blocked by the raging wind storm. However, the remaining portion of its power was still shockingly strong. Lu Ming could only borrow Qiu's strength. During that time, Qiu had evolved again. Previously, it had the strength of the 3rd Godly Emperor layer, but now, it had broken through to the 4th Godly Emperor layer. This was the result of completely refining the metal planet it had devoured in the Gale Star River. Later on, Qiu would need to continue devouring new metal materials or divine weapons to evolve. Qiu had the strength of the 4th Godly Emperor layer, so it was extremely strong. It could definitely kill cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. Even so, with the help of Qiu's power, Lu Ming was still unable to block the sword gleam that only had a portion of its power left. He was still injured. From this, one could tell how terrifying Gabbert's ability was. Interesting. When Gabbert saw that Lu Ming had blocked his sword, he was surprised. He hadn't thought that Lu Ming would be able to block his sword. An interesting metallic life form, an interesting treasure? But do you think that relying on external strength can stop me? Today, I will kill you, said Gabbert coldly. He sounded confident and arrogant, as if there was nothing he couldn't do. If he wanted to kill someone, there was nothing he couldn't do. Boom! Gabbert's chi became even more terrifying. His chi became even more terrifying. His chi became even more dazzling, illuminating the sky. The sword lights were millions and millions of zhang long. Sword chi tore through the sky and moved towards Lu Ming again. This time, the power was stronger than before. Lu Ming felt that he was locked in by a powerful force. He performed the Great God Wind skill and his figure kept flashing. However, it was still difficult to avoid the sword gleam's attack. Facing that attack, it was difficult to dodge. Explode! Lu Ming roared as he used all his strength to draw out the gale bead's power. The gale bead constantly trembled and emitted a blazing light. A blazing gale rushed out of the gale bead and turned into a wall of gale in front of him. As for Lu Ming himself, he erupted with all his strength. His entire body was filled with a resplendent radiance. This was a phenomenon caused by the activation of all his secret techniques. All of the secret techniques turned into a pillar of light and shot forward. At the same time, Lu Ming held the silver spear in his hand and stabbed out. This spear contained the power of the Great God Wind technique and the Great Fragmentation technique. Boom! Gabbert's cross-shaped sword beam first slashed at the wall of gale. Just like before, the collision between the two caused a violent explosion. However, the wall of gale was still unable to withstand the attack of the cross-shaped holy sword. A crack appeared on it before it exploded. The remaining sword beam continued to slash at Lu Ming. When it came into contact with the light pillar formed by all of Lu Ming's secret techniques, it broke the light pillar with a boom and collided with the silver spear. In an instant, Lu Ming's body shook violently as if he had been electrocuted. The silver spear also bent into an astonishing arc as if it was about to break. Puff puff puff, dense sword chi suddenly appeared on the surface of Lu Ming's body and cut his body. It cut through the armor formed by Qiuqiu and cut Lu Ming's body. Numerous wounds appeared on Lu Ming's body as blood flowed out. Whoosh! Lu Ming retreated tens of thousands of meters before he could stabilize his body. His body was in tatters as if he had been hit by thousands of sword chi in an instant. But in the end, Lu Ming still managed to block this attack. The wounds on his body were rapidly healing. He blocked the second attack again. Many people at the scene were shocked, especially those from the angel race. They were even more incredulous. Lu Ming could actually block two of Gabbert's attacks. Although this was only a strand of Gabbert's divine power doppelganger and its power was far inferior to Gabbert's original body, how high was Lu Ming's cultivation? He was only a quasi-emperor. This was too shocking. Ha, the universe prodigy list is just so. Lu Ming wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled disdainfully. Gabbert's eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. Angel King Sword. Gabbert shouted softly as he stretched out his hand and pointed in the air. Then, dazzling holy light condensed in the air and turned into snow-white feathers. However, the feathers immediately changed again. They turned into divine swords. The angel feathers turned into swords. There were a total of 18 white divine swords suspended in the air, emitting terrifying fluctuations. Lu Ming's pupils contracted sharply as he felt a fatal danger. He knew that this was a terrifying killing technique that could destroy the world and blow up the tiniest particles. Even though Lu Ming had a forbidden body, it was still very dangerous. I can't block it. The Gale Pearl can't block it. Lu Ming's mind raced as he tried to think of a countermeasure. He could feel that the Gale Pearl's power would most likely not be able to block this attack. After all, his great godly wind technique and his cultivation were limited. The power that he could draw from the Gale Pearl was also limited. It would be difficult to block this attack. Now, he still had two trump cards. They were the immortal fighting soul in the fragment of the life spirit vitality stone, and the Bingxian rod. However, these two weapons were related to the life spirit of the heavenly court. They could not be easily exposed, especially the mysterious ice rod. It was too precious. It was the top weapon in the universe. Once it was exposed, it would cause a huge commotion. Perhaps the masters of the elves or the angels would be greedy and would not let it go. Therefore, Lu Ming was hesitating whether he should use it or not. If he didn't use it, he wouldn't be able to block Gabbert's attack. At this moment, Gabbert seemed to have sensed something and suddenly turned around. Behind her, an arrow pierced through the air and flew towards him. It carried a terrifying power as it continuously exploded in the air. Slash! Gabbert shouted softly. He raised his hand and waved it. One of the feather swords slashed towards the sword light. With a boom, a violent explosion occurred between the two. Then, the arrow and the feather sword disappeared at the same time. Ling Yue, Gabbert looked at Ling Yue. The person who attacked just now was Ling Yue. At this moment, Ling Yue was holding the Elf King's bow with blood in her hand and aiming it at Gabbert. "You want to attack me?" Gabbert whispered, his gaze as cold as a knife. "Lu Ming is my fiancé. If you want to kill him, I naturally have to do it," Ling Yue said. As she spoke, she took one step at a time, her aura becoming stronger and stronger. A terrifying pressure was emitted from Ling Yue's body. Behind her, a towering tree appeared, emitting an endless green light. Waves of green light continuously poured into Ling Yue's body, condensing into an arrow on the Elf King's bow that was stained with blood. "Good, very good." Gabbert said a few words of "good." His voice and expression were extremely cold. Originally, he had taken a fancy to Ling Yue and wanted to marry her. But now, because of another man, Ling Yue had attacked him. If this were to spread, he would definitely lose all face. This caused his killing intent to be extremely strong. Chapter 39-41. Ling Yue, even if you want to help him, I will still kill this Mu Yun in front of you and let you watch him die with your own eyes. Gabbert's cold voice rang out, followed by a loud shout, "Angel King Sword, chop!" Swoosh swoosh swoosh, the remaining dozen or so feather divine swords began to spin rapidly, their sword chi soaring into the sky. Gale Storm, however, before Gabbert could make his move, Lu Ming had already made his move. The scorching cracks swept towards Gabbert. At the same time, Ling Yue also made her move. An arrow shot out. This arrow was emerald green in color, but it carried a trace of blood light. It was simply terrifying to the extreme, and was several times stronger than the previous arrow. It was obvious that the previous arrow was just a casual arrow from Ling Yue. She did not use her full strength, but this arrow used her full strength. Gabbert's face darkened as he controlled the 17 feather divine swords. 10 of them flew towards Ling Yue and 7 of them slashed towards Lu Ming. Ling Yue's arrow was extremely fast. In an instant, it had approached Gabbert and collided with his feather divine sword. Boom! 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 Continuous rumbling sounds rang out, and an astonishing scene occurred. When Ling Yue's arrow collided with the feather divine sword, it actually pierced through multiple feather divine swords. 1, 2, 3, in less than a breath of time, he had pierced through 7 feather divine swords, causing Gabbert's expression to change drastically. With a wave of his hand, 5 of the 7 feather divine swords that were slashing towards Lu Ming changed direction and slashed towards Ling Yue. Only 2 of them remained, slashing towards Lu Ming. Amidst the continuous rumbling sounds, the feather divine swords that were slashing towards Ling Yue were all pierced through by Ling Yue's arrows. However, at this time, the power of the arrows had also reached its end and dissipated. However, it still forced Gabbert to retreat several thousand meters before stabilizing his body. On the other side, there were only 2 feather divine swords that were successfully blocked by Lu Ming. So powerful. At the scene, everyone's eyes fell on Ling Yue, revealing deep shock. The elves, in particular, found it even more unbelievable. Ling Yue actually had such strong strength. Not only was she able to defeat most of Gabbert's attacks, she was also able to repel Gabbert. How was this possible? It was like a fantasy story. Wasn't Ling Yue a quasi-emperor in the past? Furthermore, she was only ranked in the top 10 of the quasi-emperors. She wasn't even a divine emperor. Compared to Gabbert, there was a difference between heaven and earth. And that arrow just now, the strength that Ling Yue had displayed was simply terrifying. Second Godly Emperor layer, when did the princess break through to the second Godly Emperor layer? Moreover, her elven bloodline is excessively rich. Just now, I felt a terrifying pressure that made me want to submit to her. Me too, I have the same feeling. At the scene, the elves began to discuss among themselves. Gabbert's gaze was also fixed on Ling Yue. His gaze was like two divine swords. Ling Yue, your strength is beyond my imagination. You are even stronger than the legends. You are worthy of me. Who wants to be worthy of you? My fiancé is Mu Yun. Now, scram out of the elf clan. Otherwise, you can only leave behind this divine clone of yours. Ling Yue shouted. Humph, stubborn. There's nothing I can't get, especially women. Now, I'll kill Mu Yun first. Gabbert's face turned cold. Killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. The holy light was dense and turned into a sword light that soared into the sky. He was about to launch a thunderous attack. Wang! Ling Yue was very direct as she pulled the bowstring. Under Ling Yue's pull, the Elf King's bow, which was stained with blood, continuously vibrated. The blood on the bow seemed to have come to life as it slowly flowed and filled the air with a bloody light. An emerald green arrow with a trace of blood light condensed once again, emitting a terrifying fluctuation. The current Ling Yue was much stronger than when he first met Lu Ming. Not only had his cultivation soared to the second level of the Divine Emperor realm, but he could also control the Elf King's bow that was stained with blood. Most importantly, Ling Yue's bloodline had evolved. Her elf bloodline had reached a terrifying level. It seemed to be able to resonate with the Elf King's bow that was stained with blood, and was able to unleash the power of the Elf King's bow that was stained with blood. This was why she was able to repel Gabbert with a single arrow. Gabbert seemed to have felt the terror of this arrow. His figure quickly changed, wanting to avoid the lock of Ling Yue's arrow. Swoosh! Ling Yue's arrow was directly shot out. As soon as it flew out, it began to change rapidly. One arrow turned into two turned into four turned into 8, in the blink of an eye, they turned into hundreds and thousands of arrows. They were densely packed and filled the air, completely sealing off all of Gabbert's space. Seeing that he couldn't avoid it, Gabbert's face darkened. His aura erupted, transforming into a cross-shaped holy sword that swept out in all directions, wanting to destroy all the arrows. However, when he swept out his sword light, many of the arrows disappeared. It's fake, it's an illusion. Gabbert's expression changed. Just as he was about to move out, it was already too late. Behind him, an arrow suddenly sped up and pierced through Gabbert's back. A gap appeared in Gabbert's divine avatar. Gabbert, send your divine avatar on your way. Ling Yue shouted and drew her bow again. Swish swish swish, this time, a total of 7 arrows were shot out. 7 consecutive arrows, linked together like a ray of light, shot towards Gabbert at a terrifying speed. Break for me! Gabbert let out a long roar, his body emitting a dazzling light. His entire body seemed to be burning, transforming into a dazzling sword light that violently slashed out. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion rang out. The air shook violently, and the strength chi overflowed in all directions. A dazzling light erupted, causing many people to be unable to open their eyes. In the next moment, a figure retreated backwards, almost leaving the range of the elven holy tree's tree stump. Young Master Gabbert! Young Master! The angels cried out in alarm. The reason for that was because the figure that was rapidly retreating was none other than Gilbert. Everyone's gaze fell on Gabbert. At this moment, another hole appeared on Gabbert's body, causing Gabbert's body to become even more illusory, as if it would dissipate at any time. Young Master! How dare you hurt young Master Gabbert? The angels roared furiously. Gabbert waved his hand, and the angels immediately quieted down. Good, very good. Gabbert looked at Ling Yue, his eyes filled with a kind of flame. It was the color of greed, and it was even denser than before. Your strength is not bad, but this is only a divine avatar of mine. Its strength is not even 1% of my main body's. However, I am very satisfied that you were able to injure one of my divine avatars. Gabbert said. Ling Yue coldly snorted, her eyes shining as she stared at Gabbert without the slightest fear. Chapter 39-42. Right now, Ling Yue had a strong sense of confidence. Even if her current strength was still far from Gabbert's main body, she was confident that sooner or later, she would catch up to Gabbert. She was confident that her current talent was definitely above Gabbert's. After Gabbert finished speaking, he looked at Lu Ming. Just now, Lu Ming didn't make a move because she discovered that Ling Yue's strength was already above Gabbert's divine clone, so there was no need for him to make a move. Mu Yun, do you think you can sit back and relax just by hiding behind a woman? If I want to kill you, you won't be able to escape. Gabbert said coldly. With your cultivation base that is much higher than mine, do you think it's glorious to deal with me? Lu Ming said disdainfully. Having a high cultivation base is also a kind of talent. In this world, cultivation base is the foundation. You and I are both of the younger generation. If your cultivation base is insufficient, it means that you are trash. Do you understand? Gabbert said coldly, still with a high and mighty expression. Although he had lost this battle and his divine clone was about to dissipate, he was still arrogant and high and mighty. Because in this battle, he was only a wisp of divine clone. The difference in strength between him and his main body was too great. There were many methods that he couldn't use. In addition, Ling Yue had relied on a great killing weapon to defeat his divine clone, not on her own strength. Although he had lost, it didn't affect him. He still had the belief that he was invincible. A high cultivation base is also a kind of talent. Relying on the endless resources of the angel race or the guidance of countless experts of the angel race? Lu Ming continued to speak, the disdain in his voice growing stronger. I, Mu Yun, come from a small force. I have to rely on myself to fight for all the resources. Every step of improvement is based on my own comprehension. I have to rely on myself to walk step by step until now. I have cultivated for less than 10,000 years. If there were the same conditions, what would you, Gabbert, be in front of me? Lu Ming continued, his voice spreading in all directions. The scene quieted down. Many people revealed thoughtful expressions. That's right, Mu Yun's cultivation time should be about the same as Ling Yue's. They were both young, and they came from a small power. They relied on themselves to reach this step, revealing a terrifying and unparalleled battle prowess that was invincible among those of the same level. As for Gabbert, he was born in the angel race, one of the top 10 races in the universe. He had as many resources as he wanted, and he had countless experts to guide him. That was how he had achieved what he had today. Most importantly, Gabbert had been cultivating for at least tens of thousands of years. If the two of them had the same conditions, would Mu Yun be worse than him? You're sharp-tongued. The path of cultivation isn't about talking. It's about strength and combat power. If you're weak, then you're weak. Why do you have to find excuses for your weakness? When my true body descends in the future, I'll kill you with one move. Gabbert's indifferent voice rang out once again. His eyes were still shining brightly, and he was not affected by Lu Ming's words. A person like him had an extremely tenacious mind. How could he doubt his own path and his own path just because of the words of others? Obviously, that was impossible. Kill me with one move? Give me another 10,000 years, no, as long as I have 1,000 years, I'll be able to trample you under my feet. What genius of the angel race! You're nothing in my eyes. Lu Ming said loudly. The scene was silent as everyone looked at Lu Ming in a daze. Was Lu Ming going to challenge Gabbert? But what did he say? He could trample Gabbert under his feet in 1,000 years? Was that possible? Absolutely impossible. For them, 1,000 years was a short period of time. It was just a blink of an eye. The time of one seclusion was far more than 1,000 years. What was Lu Ming's cultivation base now? He was just a quasi-emperor. It was almost impossible for him to break through to the divine emperor realm from the quasi-emperor realm in 1,000 years. Most people had to accumulate endless years in the quasi-emperor realm, which was measured in hundreds of millions of years. It was extremely difficult to accumulate enough to break through to the divine emperor realm in 1,000 years. Taking a step back, even if Lu Ming could break through to the divine emperor realm in 1,000 years, what could he do? Compared to Gabbert, the difference was still like heaven and earth. It was impossible for him to be Gabbert's opponent. It was impossible to challenge Gabbert in 1,000 years. Mu Yun. Ling Yue looked at Lu Ming. Even she felt that it was very difficult. The others also secretly shook their heads. You want to challenge me? Gabbert looked at Lu Ming indifferently. You can say that. Lu Ming said. Huh, are you trying to stall for time for yourself? Since you want to stall for time, you should set a longer date so that you can live a little longer. Gabbert sneered. 1,000 years is enough for a trash like you. If I need a longer time, wouldn't it seem that I'm too useless? Lu Ming said. These words, even with Gabbert's wisdom, caused his eyes to shrink, revealing a trace of anger. How much was he looking down on him? Brat, you're courting death. You overestimate yourself. What qualifications do you have to challenge young Master Gabbert? The few people from the Angel clan shouted one after another. If you don't dare, just say it. If you don't dare, then kill me with your original body. I'll wait for you here and fight with you. Lu Ming said loudly. Ha ha ha, you want to use such a low-level method to provoke me? Gabbert sneered and said, all right, I agree to your challenge. I'll give you 1,000 years to live for 1,000 more years. In the end, Gabbert agreed. Originally, there was no need for him to agree. How could he be tricked so easily? However, it was only 1,000 years. In the blink of an eye, it didn't matter. This was because the time was simply too short. Furthermore, he had been cultivating recently and had reached a critical juncture. He was about to achieve a breakthrough in one of his secret techniques and he would need to spend a considerable amount of time in his family. In the short term, his actual body could not come out to hunt Lu Ming down. Therefore, it didn't matter if he agreed. If Lu Ming said that he would challenge him in a few 100 million years or a few stellar years, he would naturally not agree. Hua! Waves of discussion rang out at the scene. Mu Yun challenged Gabbert, and Gabbert actually agreed. The time was 1,000 years later, and this was truly big news. Just let you live for 1,000 more years? After 1,000 years, no matter where you hide, I will find you, Gabbert continued to speak. After saying this, his body collapsed with a bang and dissipated into the air. This strand of divine power clone of his had been continuously struck by Ling Yue, and it was already difficult for him to maintain it. At this moment, it finally collapsed. Elves, you're very good, an old man from the Angel clan swept his gaze across Ling Huashua and the others. He coldly left behind a sentence, then turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, the people from the Angel clan disappeared without a trace. He came with a strong force and retreated in a sorry state. At the scene, the sounds of discussion grew louder and louder. The center of the discussion was none other than two people, Lu Ming and Ling Yue. One was Lu Ming challenging Gabbert, and the other was Ling Yue's strength. Everyone was very curious. How did Ling Yue's strength increase so much? Chapter 39-43. There was a commotion at the scene as everyone discussed. "Quiet down," Ling Huashua said and raised his hand. The scene immediately quieted down. "All right, there's a small accident. Now, the holy worshipping ceremony will continue. Didn't you want to know who got the seed of the holy tree? Now, I'll announce it," Ling Huashua said. The elves' eyes were filled with anticipation. They temporarily put aside the matter of the angels. They were more curious about who got the seed of the holy tree. After all, the seed of the holy tree had a greater impact on the elves. It was related to the rise and fall of the elves. Everyone's eyes fell on Ling Huashua, waiting for his announcement. "The person who got the seed of the holy tree is," Ling Huashua pointed at Lu Ming and announced loudly, "Mu Yun." "What?" Everyone was shocked. They turned to look at Lu Ming and stared at Lu Ming in a daze. It was Lu Ming. The one who got the seed of the holy tree was Lu Ming. This was beyond everyone's expectations. They thought it was a certain prodigy of the elves. They never expected it to be Lu Ming. After Ling Huafeng, Ling Piao, and the others recommended Mu Yun to participate in the holy seed assessment. In the end, Mu Yun exceeded my expectations and brought out the holy tree seed from the ancestral land. He even brought out 49 high-grade elven tree seeds. Yue also successfully obtained the opportunity of the holy seed mother tree, Ling Huashua said. Behind him, Ling Piao, Ling Huafeng, and the others' faces were as black as charcoal. Initially, they had secretly informed Gilbert so that they could make use of the power of the angels to kill Lu Ming. However, in the end, the people from the angels had come but left with their tails between their legs. Lu Ming was still alive and well. Their anger already surged into the heavens, their mentality exploding, extremely unresigned. But now, Ling Huashua had touched on their sore spot. He had mentioned that they were the ones who recommended Lu Ming to participate in the holy seed assessment, and that was how he got the seed of the holy tree. At the thought of this, they felt even more displeased. They felt that their heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys were in pain. Hua! At this moment, everyone present finally reacted. There was an uproar as they discussed animatedly. They finally knew why Ling Huashua wanted to protect Lu Ming even when facing the pressure of the angels. This was because Lu Ming had made a huge contribution to the angels. No matter what, they had to protect Lu Ming. They finally knew why Ling Yue's cultivation was so fast and her talent reached such an astonishing level. It was also because she obtained the seed of the holy seed. Mu Yun, he is a person, he is, and. Previously, many people thought that Ling Huashua should not offend the angels because of Lu Ming. This would be disadvantageous to the elves. But now, their thinking had changed completely. He thought that Ling Huashua had done the right thing. They even thought that Lu Ming would be able to prosper the elf race and bring luck to the elf race. He had yet to marry Ling Yue, but he had already brought the seeds of the holy tree and 49 high-level elf tree seeds to the elf race. If he were to get married, what benefits would it bring to the elf race? There were even people urging Lu Ming and Ling Yue to get married quickly. This made Lu Ming speechless. But in the end, most of the elves recognized Lu Ming. Even the younger generation of elves who wanted to pursue Ling Yue also recognized Lu Ming. After all, the seed of the holy tree was too important to the elves. Only Ling Piao and the others were hiding at the back, gritting their teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. After announcing the origin of the holy tree seed, the sacred worship ceremony continued. In the end, Ling Huashua took out the holy tree seed, pushing the atmosphere to its peak. After that, Lu Ming had nothing to do. Lu Ming just watched quietly from the side. The next morning, Lu Ming bid farewell to Ling Yue, Ling Huashua, and the others. "You're leaving so soon. Why don't you stay for a while longer?" Ling Yue looked at Lu Ming with hidden bitterness. That gaze was enough to melt even steel. Fortunately, Lu Ming's heart was harder than steel and he was able to withstand it. I received news from the sect leader that the Heavenly Palace is about to start recruiting heavenly soldiers. I need to go back and prepare. Lu Ming said. Ling Huashua nodded his head and said, in the universe, most of the geniuses will choose to join the Heavenly Palace and become a heavenly soldier, obtaining better training. You going to the Heavenly Palace to become a heavenly soldier and train yourself is also a good direction. Back then, I also entered the Heavenly Palace to become a heavenly soldier. Can you still withdraw after becoming a heavenly soldier? Lu Ming was curious. Ling Huashua was now the elf patriarch, so he definitely wouldn't be a heavenly soldier. This was because when he was a heavenly soldier, he definitely wouldn't be able to return to be the elf patriarch. Of course you can, but there are conditions. As long as you accumulate enough merit points for the Heavenly Palace, you can retire and regain your freedom. Many of the Overlord-level characters in the universe were heavenly soldiers when they were young. Ling Huashua said. Merit points? Lu Ming was curious. You'll know about this when you become a heavenly soldier. It's not convenient for me to reveal too much now. Ling Huashua said. Does the Heavenly Palace only recruit people from the younger generation when they recruit heavenly soldiers? Lu Ming asked again. As an overlord and a heavenly soldier, Ling Huashua definitely knew a lot of information. Lu Ming naturally had to seize the opportunity to inquire about it. Not necessarily. Those who are older will also be recruited. It mainly depends on their potential. Those who don't have enough potential won't be recruited. Of course, it's still mainly the younger generation. Ling Huashua explained. Lu Ming nodded and then asked a few more questions, which Ling Huashua answered one by one. After that, Lu Ming bid farewell and left under Ling Yue's reluctant gaze. He left the elf clan and headed towards the Iron Sea Star region. Lu Ming's departure was very secretive. Other than Ling Yue and Ling Huashua, no one else knew about it. It was also to prevent anyone from harming Lu Ming. Ling Yue even made the illusion that Lu Ming was still in the elf clan in order to confuse others. The elf clan was very far away from the Plentiful Sword sect. Lu Ming took a few months to return to the Plentiful Sword sect. Lu Ming did not make a big fuss. Instead, he secretly returned to the Plentiful Sword sect and met with sect leader Wang. Sect leader Wang, where should I sign up for the Heavenly Palace's recruitment of heavenly soldiers? What do I need to prepare? Lu Ming asked. In the past, the registration was from the various heavenly cities. As for the requirements for registration and what needs to be prepared, I still don't know. Sect leader Wang said. Heavenly City was a huge city built by the Heavenly Palace. It floated in the starry sky of the universe. Ordinary people were unable to enter the Heavenly Palace. They could only enter Heavenly City. Chapter 39-44. You don't even know the conditions? What do you mean? Lu Ming frowned slightly. Yes, the Heavenly Palace is recruiting heavenly soldiers. Not everyone can sign up. There are conditions. In a few months, on the day of Extreme Een, the Heavenly Palace will issue the conditions for signing up. This condition is actually a requirement. Only those who meet the requirements can sign up. Sect leader Wang explained. I see. Lu Ming nodded. It was still early. There were still 7 to 8 months before the day of Extreme Een. There was no hurry. In the following days, Lu Ming stayed here and focused on cultivating. He mainly focused on comprehending the Great God Wind technique and the Great Shattering technique. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of Extreme Een. The day of Extreme Een was a very special day. On this day, the yang qi of the entire primitive universe would be weak and the yin qi would be strong. This day only happened once in many years. It was a great opportunity for those who cultivated extreme yin techniques. Cultivating on this day would often result in great breakthroughs. On this day, the Heavenly Palace finally issued the requirements for signing up for the Heavenly Soldier assessment through the dreamy Heavenly Jade. Those who wanted to sign up had to bring a wisp of spiritual yin qi. Moreover, they had to obtain it themselves to meet the requirements. Buying it or giving it to others did not meet the requirements. Only those who had a wisp of spiritual yin qi could sign up in the Heavenly City and qualify for the Heavenly Soldier assessment. Demonic yin qi? Lu Ming was confused. He immediately asked sect leader Wang. After sect leader Wang's explanation, Lu Ming finally understood. On the day of extreme yin, there would be a lot of demonic yin qi in all parts of the universe. Many demonic yin qi would even give birth to spiritual yin qi, especially in places with extremely dense yin qi and demonic qi. It was easier for them to be born. Those who wanted to sign up for the Heavenly Soldier assessment had to find demonic yin qi with spiritual yin qi. Only those who obtained demonic yin qi with spiritual yin qi were qualified to sign up. Moreover, they had to obtain it themselves. If others helped them, it did not count. You might ask, how would the Heavenly Palace know if they obtained it themselves? This was because there were people in the Heavenly Palace who were good at calculation. As long as they got hold of a spiritual yin qi, they would be able to calculate it. Once it was discovered that it had been purchased or obtained with the help of an elder, it would be considered as cheating the Heavenly Palace. The consequences of deceiving the Heavenly Palace would be severe. It wasn't that there weren't such people in history, but in the end, these people all disappeared and never appeared again. Everyone knew in their hearts that these people would never appear again. Sect leader Wang, do you know which places in the universe have denser baleful yin qi? It is more likely that there will be baleful yin qi with spirituality. Lu Ming asked. In the universe, there are many places with dense baleful yin energy. There are also many places where baleful yin energy can be found. However, it is not easy for ordinary people to obtain baleful yin energy with spirituality. Sect head Wang explained. What do you mean? Lu Ming asked. Because there are so many people who want to participate in the Heavenly Soldier examination. Countless races in the primitive universe will participate. Therefore, I'm afraid that many baleful yin lands will be sealed off by the experts of those powerful forces. It will be difficult for outsiders to interfere. Sect head Wang said. Didn't they say that others can't help? Why can those powerful forces still send people to seal off those places? Lu Ming frowned. They just send people to seal off certain areas and let those forces' own people enter those areas to search for baleful yin qi. Even if they don't help, the Heavenly Palace will not be able to calculate it. This is called the Heavenly Palace has a policy, and there are countermeasures below, Sect head Wang explained. Lu Ming was speechless and frowned. In this way, it would be really difficult to obtain baleful yin qi with spirituality. Some famous baleful yin places would be sealed off by those powerful forces. It would be difficult for others to enter and compete for them. Then the others can only try their luck? Lu Ming said. Was he going to be stumped at the first hurdle? He did not have to enter the Heavenly Palace to become a heavenly soldier. However, the mid-autumn moon was likely to be taken away by the big shots in the dreamy Heavenly Palace. If he did not enter the Heavenly Palace, how could he inquire about the mid-autumn moon? He would not be at ease if he did not find out more about the mid-autumn moon. Moreover, during this period, he also knew that becoming a heavenly soldier in the Heavenly Palace was an excellent training. In the universe, 90% of the overlords had entered the Heavenly Palace and become a heavenly soldier. Many geniuses would experience explosive growth in their cultivation after entering the Celestial Palace, leaving those who did not enter in the dust. If they wanted to go further in the future, they would need to become celestial soldiers, which would be very useful. Therefore, Lu Ming still hoped to become a heavenly soldier. He could not be stopped at the first step. Indeed, people from small forces can only try their luck, or go to places where the baleful yin qi is not very dense. After all, in the universe, there are some places where the baleful yin qi is not very dense, but there will still be baleful yin qi with spirituality born on the day of extreme yin. Leader Wang explained. After chatting with Leader Wang for a while, Leader Wang left, leaving Lu Ming alone to ponder. Lu Ming, I have a place that I can recommend you to go. At this time, Gu Mo's voice sounded. What place? Lu Ming was delighted. That place is called the Land of 1,000 Graves. It contains rich baleful yin qi, and there is a great chance that baleful yin qi with spirituality will be born there. Gu Mo said. Such a place should be blocked by many powerful forces. How can I go in? Lu Ming said. Don't worry, I have stayed in that place for a period of time, so I am very familiar with it. Even if those forces block it tightly, I will have a way to go in. Moreover, I have hidden some things in that place. There are 3,000 ancient secret skills and some ordinary secret skills of diabolism. They are suitable for you. Gu Mo said. There are 3,000 ancient secret skills? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He immediately decided that he must go to that place. Since Gu Mo said that he could go, there should be no problem. Okay, let's go then. Lu Ming immediately made up his mind. He then took out a few pieces of starry sky map and began to observe. These pieces of starry sky map were obtained from the elf tribe. They were the best starry sky map, covering most of the territories in the universe. Only a powerful race like the elf tribe would have such a starry sky map. This kind of starry sky map was very precious. If not for Lu Ming's great kindness to the elf tribe, he would not have been able to obtain it. Soon, Lu Ming found the location of the Land of 1,000 Graves on the starry sky map. It was still some distance away from the Iron Sea Star Zone group. Lu Ming immediately rushed over. Half a month later, Lu Ming arrived at the vicinity of the Land of 1,000 Graves. He was indeed one step too late. The vast Land of 1,000 Graves had been blocked by several forces. There were a total of 2 powerful races that had sealed off the Land of 1,000 Graves. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.